All right. What is this? What episode is this? It's episode number 60 of Geographically Challenged. Wow. Imagine that. We've got 60 episodes deep and we're in Mongolia. We're in the MESA studio. Thank you very much, MESA, for letting us use the studio for this episode.
We did kind of strong arm them into this one, though.
You did. You did more of the legwork on that than I did.
I did just say inside the Discord chat, like, guys, we want the fucking studio.
Yeah. So it's the day before the Nomadic Masters starts. So what day is it? It's Monday. Should be out tonight. So that's pretty cool. We've got the boys. We've got the English broadcast team on the show today. So we've got a lot of stuff to talk about. We've actually we haven't had an episode in a couple of weeks, and there's been a lot of stuff going on, as you guys would know. So anyway, I mean, before we jump into all that, how's Mongolia? Because I know obviously TTM you've already been there, but for you two, how's Mongolia treating you?
It's good, man. It's different, right? It's like, well, like we've kind of been joking about it. The traffic's fucking hilarious. Like it's just that carnage. But bar that, it's actually quite a relaxed vibe. Like I think, well, for me coming from London, it's like, well, we were saying that you can't walk in a straight line in London. There's way too many people. It's like so much foot traffic. It's pretty chill here. Like we went before you landed, we went shopping, wandered around. It was quite nice, quite a chilled vibe. You don't really get that in London. It's very hectic. Everyone's like sprinting everywhere. So it's nice. It's relaxed.
All right. While you guys keep chatting, I'm just going to check that the camera is recording because I have this fear that it's not recording. But carry on.
Yeah, no worries. No worries. I don't know. I think a lot more spread out than I expected.
Yeah. The drive from the airport was cool. It was just like,
the drive from the airport was really nice, actually.
Green.
Are we recording?
And all the planes and wild horses and you know,
and then the dogs eating the wild horse as
well.
well.
You saw dogs eating the wild horses?
Yeah. It was like 6 a.m. Yeah, and I'm like, I was just peering out the window, looking at the lovely landscapes, breakfast. And then just saw these two, like, I'm assuming wild dogs, just like
could have been wolves actually.
Maybe wolves.
There's a lot of wolves over here.
Nah, they weren't big enough. Like they look like
just little Jack Russells.
No, not even like kind of like sheepdog sort of thing.
Yeah, sheepdogs eating horses.
You know what I mean? But they were going ham. They were scranning. It was like 6 a.m. So they're getting breakfast and early.
Well,
you know what I mean?
It's funnily enough, last time when we came, the person who was social media manager back then, Namuna, I remember Michael and I asked her that, hey, what do you guys sort of do? What do you do in like your free time and everything? How you spend your time? And she was just mentioning, we normally go back to the villages because it's so spread out. So we don't always have family in the city. So, we go back to the villages, the farms and everything. We help out and, we'll get together. We'll cook food. We'll hunt wolves. We'll read some stories. And I was like, wait, what the fuck? You're hunting wolves. And again, just a reminder, I'm a tall guy. This woman is maybe like 5'7", right? And like she's cute as a dimple, just like. And I was like, I don't believe you. You're pulling my leg. She pulls out a photo of her holding like a wolf up.
Jesus Christ.
With like her brother next to her, and her brother's a fucking dank of a human being, right? Like just like clearly like 6'4", jacked as fuck. Clearly like.
Dude, that's Mongolia.
I've never had to wonder whether someone had Genghis Khan blood in him.
Yeah, dude. Mongolia, highest testosterone in the world.
Is that true?
Yeah, nowhere in the world is the highest level of testosterone on average than Mongolia. So they don't need tren. They like.
That's why they're so good at Counter-Strike.
Exactly. That's why they're so good at video games. I mean, look, it's been wild. I tell you what, when we talk about what's been wild, if we want to start with the Tyloo changes, because those are pretty wild. Now, I know you've got a lot probably to say on this matter because you're a certified Advent hater.
I saw the last podcast. The shout out was pretty funny.
Yeah, I've learned how to say your name since then. But okay, just for the people at home who maybe aren't playing along or who need a little bit of a refresher, the Tyloo changes as it stands currently, minus Advent, minus Kaze, minus Orman, all off of the roster now. Which, to be fair, there was like this like thought that maybe that was the case already, but now it's like in writing on the Twitter. They posted it. The manager, Air, I think was his name as well. He's gone too. Yeah. So they're making a lot of changes, it seems like. And the big rumor that we haven't actually discussed yet on the podcast is that, and again, this is not like confirmed or anything, but it seems as though G and Starry are going to come in to join the core of the Tyloo roster, which would make the roster, when this eventually does happen, Jamyoung in-game leading, Mercury, Mosey, G, and Starry.
Mosey, we're not calling him Mosey. Come on, man.
Well, apparently it's Mosey.
Is it?
Really.
Listen, sometimes you need to overrule the players.
I think Mosey does sound a lot cooler
because you can pull out the entire Messiah of Asia and everything angle. But yeah, so
whatever you want to call him. I mean, anyway, the big TLDR obviously is these roster changes are fucking crazy because like this is like out with the old, in with the new, right? I mean, Advent, he's been he's been there for a long time, and he's been probably overdue to.
I can't believe I'm going to be the only person who's going to defend Advent over here. But why don't you cunts have a talk first?
I like Advent. I like him for his what he's been able to do for the region, and obviously been able to bring in a lot of sort of talent into China. Right, we're talking about these players like Jam Young, like Mercury, etc. He's done a lot for that, but I do think he was past his time. I don't think he was in that roster. I don't think he should have been in that roster for the last 12 months. He needed to move on. And honestly, from what I've seen of even like the new iteration of Tyloo, which isn't even the new iteration, but I've been casting them in ESL Challenger League, the roster was like Jam Young, Mercury, Mosey, Cammy was standing in, and they still had ZDR playing. And honestly, they actually looked pretty good with that roster for the most part, which was funny to me because they've got a stand-in, which is a coach, and also ZDR, who, by the way, I didn't think ZDR was too bad. But anyway, I don't know. Like, I think definitely it was time for a change in Tyloo. That will be my first point. Whether or not you agree with these changes is maybe another discussion. But in my mind, I do think minus Advent, I also think minus Kaze are probably the changes that you would make, if anything. Orman, I mean, he wasn't really in the roster anyway, so that's kind of a muchness. I think that's a moot point for me. But I'm kind of glad that something's happening, that they're actually trying something different, that they're doing something different, because they feel like this team in general, even despite the fact, that they're in Tyloo now, going back to Rear Adam, going back to Vici, going back to whatever, felt like they were like very stagnant. They were just trying and trying and trying and trying with the same roster, and they never got anywhere. And now finally it's like, okay, we're going to blow it up and we're going to start something new. Jam Young's going to come in as the IGL, and we'll see how that goes, and fingers crossed. But anyway, off you go.
I mean, I think I definitely probably shouldn't start because I won't stop.
Yeah, sure.
So I feel like maybe you guys can start.
No, I'll stop you. Don't worry now. I'm waiting.
Kickstart us here, Scriv.
Okay, I'll jump in. I think the obvious thing is that a move around Advent definitely I feel had to be made. Maybe you're gonna come in and have a bit of a different opinion, but like especially maybe not so much like domestically. I think it had been a bit weird for them domestically, like it always can be, and like the Challenger League and everything can be a bit unpredictable, especially towards the playoff kind of stage, to find that consistency. But when it came to like the international games and that they would sort of qualify for and things like that, he's just like a bit too much dead weight, like stats wise, to be honest, like regardless of how he leads or whatever. But I certainly feel that just numbers wise, Advent was a bit too much dead weight. I feel like, I don't know, the one thing that comes in sort of surprising, I'll leave again, if you guys want to go at it over Advent, that's fair enough. But I think maybe Kaze moving out comes as kind of a surprise. I don't know if there's potentially because he's like part of Team Advent.
I think there's a package deal, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's like a bit of a split in the team or whatever, and obviously I think that comes across just by the fact that you had players dipping in and out, and they had the like 6-man roster going on or whatever, but then not really, and all this kind of stuff. So it was a bit strange in that sense, but I think that Kaze was still pretty consistent, putting up numbers, and that's a lot of experience as well to drop, which I think is something at the moment in Asia that is sort of missing. There's like a big gap in the middle where you've got like talent coming in, and then you've got like more experienced players, but there's not really sort of journeymen in the middle.
I suppose in that case, the question you would have to ask yourself there is, would you rather have Kaze or would you rather have G, if this is the rumor that's going to prove to be true?
Just like, correct me if I'm wrong, is it Lyrics who's an AWPer as well?
Lyrics was the AWPer that
he's contracted. Why is he?
We don't talk about Tyloo in contract.
Yeah, but like that's the thing I don't understand. Like we never.
They
saw
tried him. No, they did play
like
with him in ESL Challenger League a few times.
Put it this way.
I wasn't super impressed.
Tyloo doesn't feel comfortable unless they have cheerleaders, and that's what the bench comes in for. That's why Tyloo always has at least 3 players on the bench saying like, "Yeah, guys, come on, you can
like
do
a solid
it."
7 or something nowadays.
I think they had 9 at a
they had a lot.
Like it. Yeah,
No, but
for a while there.
I think if the choice was between Lyrics and Kaze, I'm taking Kaze every day of the week. I said as much when they played at Chengdu, but I don't know. Like Kaze, I don't think he was awful. I think he was fine. I think he was solid enough. But the thing is, like, is that going to be enough to get Tyloo, which is the premier Chinese Counter-Strike organization, to a position that they're happy with? If they're going to play at the Shanghai Major, for example, they're going to want to do well there. They're a team that has been in the top 10 in Counter-Strike's history. Is Kaze the AWPer that can take them there? Is Advent the in-game leader that can take them there?
Yeah.
I think the answer to both of those questions is no. Is there a better option in China right now than Kaze from what I've seen? I think the answer also is no.
I mean, this is why I completely disagree. I completely disagree on this. I think Kaze has the biggest thing that Advent has done wrong within the Chinese scene, within Tyloo and before where Adam was keeping Kaze on. Because Kaze is well past his prime. Kaze goes for a very default, very defensive style of hopping, except for Inferno, where he sometimes will pop off internationally or for one map, and that's what buys him more time in the eyes of the people who only see them internationally. Kaze was an incredibly weak hopper towards the end of it all. He did not go for assertive peaks, and maybe that's something that's more of a symptom of what was going on inside the team in terms of the distress that's being created between factions, and I'm willing to believe that. But Kaze should have been out of this team a year and a half ago. G is such an upgrade to come true, and I know that G's not necessarily hit the monster numbers either, but the thing about G is he plays a much more modern style of hopping. He will go for that one peak and rotate away. He does give off a lot more of the nice large scale rotational energy that I do think they were missing on Kaze. I didn't feel like Kaze was doing enough on a map most of the time, and he was leading far too much into the supportive hopping side of things. Not to mention Kaze's rifles on the T side got pretty fucking weak as well, and that's something that G definitely brings into the table. So I think bringing G in is just like a no questions asked for me. I don't know if he will definitely prove it, but I think Kaze was well past his time, and G's at least had that international experience. And then when you pair him in with people who he's probably been looking up to like Jamyang, then I think that goes a far way. As far as Advent, though, this is where I think the conversation gets murky, because if we look over towards what was happening with, I think it was Mosaic that was like put on the bench, was it Mercury?
Rosie was on the bench.
Mosaic, right? Yeah. So I think it's fair to assume that there was probably some conflict going on with Advent, right?
There's
that
some pretty good rumors. I'm sure you might
listen, you've mentioned some of the rumors to me.
Yeah.
My point is just, if you actually looked at the prep that Tyloo did a lot of the time going into international events, it was very good prep. It was very good, like, specific anti-shredding. I remember their match against Monty, obviously, because I was on the desk for that one back in Sean Kaping for ESL Challenger Winter last year and everything. They come in with the right weaknesses identified for the enemy team. They come in with the right things targeted. The problem has always been is that they don't have a fucking stable pair of hands on them, because they're clearly just shivering and shaking the more they go international. And that demon has been haunting Kaze, especially, I think, but also Advent. Because, again, if you've got people inside your team who are consistently questioning your calls, it doesn't matter if it's a good call or not, right? So I really think that this should have been a move a lot further back, where Kaze was removed from the team, where probably, I love Mercury and Messiah, but if one of them is creating issues, I think it's safe to say it's not Jamyang, right, with how much of a history they have.
Yeah.
If one of them's creating issues, then I would have given Advent a chance where, like, with a team that actually properly believed in him, because as much as we might say that he doesn't put up the statistics, he doesn't do all of these things, at the end of the day, we have to massively caveat that if you are an IGL playing in a region which needs a lot more preparation, a lot more buy-in, one of the reasons why Mongolz have done so well, and one of the reasons why I think Score was even removed initially in Mongolz, was because that was one of the few players who could actually stand head-to-head with Blitz, because he had the same legacy, he had the same victory, he was a star player. I really think Advent was never given the same sort of chance that Blitz was to the same extent. And look, do I think that they could have gotten into top 10? No, but I also think that they would have probably made some majors. They would have probably made top fours at some ESL challengers. And frankly speaking, asking for more than that is asking for a lot from Chinese Counter-Strike right now.
Yeah. I have a couple, like, personal, like, counterpoints. I had a conversation with a friend. He's like, so a friend of mine went to uni with is from China, so he knows all of these guys personally. He plays at, like, I can't remember, is it Perfect Worlds at their version of FPL? So he knows all of them. So we were having a discussion about this when the rumors came out about the new team. So kind of at least my opinion of it was that I think Kaze has a much higher floor, but I think G has a much higher ceiling. So I think Kaze is just kind of reliable. You should get on average above like a 1 rating, for example.
I'll say Kaze has not had a higher floor for the past year. Kaze has been pretty dog.
No, but I don't think but the reason why I was thinking I first of all, I'm plus G. I do actually like G as an AWPer, but the only argument I had for myself was that in that team where you've got two arguably star riflers, you've got Jamyang and Starry, both who are insanely good mechanically, Mercury and Mosaic, who are both FPL stars, right? Like, that's how they were found, but same with Jamyang. So you've got 4 super aggro riflers when they want to be, right? You've got 4, like, kind of, they can be quite puggy if they want, because that's inherently where they came from. Like, their version
Starry
of FPL.
and Jamyang are very defensive riflers. They're not aggro.
No, but like, I mean, they came from a world of being FPLs. Like, so that's where, like, inherently they were kind of raised upon. Having somebody like a Kaze, who's just like a little bit more of like a leader, an older voice, and somebody who is, you were talking about him being quite a passive supporting thing. I don't think that's the worst thing in the world when you've got 4 people who could be quite aggro when they want to be. And I feel like if you're Jamyang, I know you say he's quite defensive, but if he then starts calling a very common thing you see of IGLs, at least happens in a lot in EU and NA, is that the IGL then becomes the primary source of aggro.
I mean, Jiaming will have to move away from the roles if you want Starry to come in, right? Starry plays very similar roles to him, so it's easy to assume that he's going to go aggro, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I mean. Like that's when it's not really maybe the worst thing in the world. I'm a little bit more of like a passive defensive person. However, my thing was saying I think G has a much higher ceiling. Like these days, I'm with you. I think Kaze is kind of past it. Love the guy. I think he's a very, very good player. He's done a lot for the team and for the region. But, you know, realistically, where they're wanting to achieve, like, I think going for an upgrade of somebody who's a little bit younger, has a little bit more potential for the future, I think is the way to go. For Advent, fucking hell, that guy should not have been playing for the last 2 years, maybe. But the thing with me, like, yes, I'm an Advent hater. I'm kind of running this narrative throughout Pro League because he is, like, he's fucking dog shit, right? Like, he's so bad at the game, like, mechanically. Like, it's not even like I joke about it, but, like, he is mechanically, like, awful. Like, he's horrendous. Second lowest rated player at Pro League, bar Kai. Kai's fucking awful as well. So, like, it's, you know, the battle of the shitters, right? But with Advent, there's no world in which he could not, like, you know, for me, what the point I was always pushing was that I wanted him to take a back room. I wanted him to be like a general manager or a coach or an assistant coach
absolutely.
or an analyst. He is an insanely good mind for the game. He's easily one of the smartest people to come from this region, maybe ever, right? In terms of like finding talent, scouting them, and then putting them into a system. But being in the server is what held that team back. He should have a long time ago been either a manager or a coach or analyst or something, because he obviously is a very good, like you talking about, he can break down teams so well. He knows how to counter strat. He knows how to set his guys up right. But in the server, he was such dead weight. I mean, at Pro League, one of the games we were doing, he was 0-16. Like, come on. Like, it's like, there's no excuses anymore. And they were playing, it was an Elam game against, it was someone bad. They reverse sweeped it, they won, but they lost map one.
Was it Sharks?
Yes, Sharks.
Yeah,
Right,
Sharks,
come on
yeah.
now. Like, you know, 0-15, 0-16 to Sharks is inexcusable to me.
Right now, mechanically as well, 100% fair. But the one thing that I will say is that historically within Asian Counter-Strike, whenever you see Tyloo, well, back then Rare Adam, whenever you saw them losing like these really important qualifier matches or, you know, in the RMRs especially or things like that, the problem was never that one guy was rated really poorly.
Yeah.
That's the thing, which is where I agree would be a bottleneck internationally if you're going above a particular point. But the issue, and right now, by the way, I think is the time to ever move Advent. What I would just say is that Advent's career over the past 2 years has been unfairly marred by the idea that he's been a bad individual player because of the simple fact that if you actually look at their losses, 3 players don't show up.
No, it is true. But what I'm saying is, like,
the issue that generally, I'm sorry, Neo, but the issue that generally happens is the reason why I've been very hypercritical of Advent, by the way, is because they rely so much on CT-sided stupid gamble stack calls from like the beginning of a round, which is what they do whenever they're feeling like the pressure. And I do think that, again, this has been a very poorly roster managed team because it was clearly that in these elimination matches, the team did not believe in Advent's calling. It was very fucking obvious. And that's the kind of situation where if you are then seeing them go for these gamble stacks and things like this, and then 3 players aren't fragging, you're never getting the right rotations, everyone's clearly just getting jitterish. I think Advent's career would have gone a lot further. We would have seen a lot more Chinese teams at the major potentially if we had, first of all, if Kaze had been out, because I do think Kaze was a part of that defensive element. And the other thing was if they'd been willing to say, you know what, Mercury and Mosaic are both sick players, they're insane individually, but we cannot have people who are completely undermining our IGL.
I'd much rather have 2 talented riflers than a shit IGL with which
Have
can't
you seen
frag.
the Huns play?
Huh?
Have you seen the Huns
Well,
play?
yeah, but I think it's a different story comparing the Huns to this team.
I don't think so. They've got very similar pieces, right? You look over towards Score, you look over to Yami. Yami is the best player in Asia right now, by the way. Score and Yami alone should
That's
be
a bold call, I'll just say.
Yeah, it's kind of
Yami
rogue.
is better than anyone on the Mongolz right now as far as an individual talent is concerned. From what I understand, there might be some attitude issues, which is why he didn't get the call up. Otherwise, he would have been like a shoe-in. The Huns has so much talent on them. They've got those veteran players.
It's easy
as well.
to be a good player on a shit team. It's very easy to shine on a shit team.
Yami was like, also that's just objectively not true. But Yami was just
We've
like
literally got
carrying
2
through.
guys here at this tournament who are like that.
You
Heavy
wanna-
God
you wanna-
is a great player on a shit team.
Fair enough, agreed.
And he's shining because the rest of the
This
team
I
is
agree
so
with,
ass.
but also that's
very easy to make yourself look good when the rest of the team are bad.
Fair enough, but I don't think that's necessarily true in Asia when you're going up against like the best teams in the region and everything. When you see Yami go up against the Mongolz when he was on Eruption and Aatrox later, right?
Yep.
He was still fragging out. You don't necessarily always see that coming in from these players unless, again, Heavy God is a ridiculously good player who's going to be on a much higher level, right? At least we can admit that. It's not that he's just looking good because he's on a bad team. We're not seeing people talk up Nexius the same way, even though Nexius is probably better than his team to a small extent. So Yami's a very good player. I'm just saying that we've seen this shit IGL 4 talented riflers thing in Asia so much, and it doesn't work. You don't qualify.
Yeah, so no, what I'm saying is I think Advent a while ago should have gone to a back, like a management-ish role, because I think like even as a coach, I think his ideas he can bring to the game are great. But like if you just have somebody who believes in him in a system, same thing, right? But he's not in the server. I think that was the issue, was that like in the server they just didn't trust him anymore because he was such dead weight. I mean, even when we were doing Pro League, so many times it was like, I think it was him and Jam Young off the top of my head who were like anchoring B site on CT, and it was like, this is the 0-15 game, and he was like go in, he would just die immediately.
Oh no!
And then it was like Jam Young
right
alone.
Now, especially, I agree.
Yeah,
but
so I would have liked him as a coach. Like I do hate on him because he is bad, but like it was also a lot of it was in jest. Like I don't hate the guy,
yeah, of course.
But for me, the big thing was I always thought that he should have a long time ago realized I'm way past it. But
well, there was rumors like 2 years ago that he was going to be leaving, like moving on. And then we were like, okay, well, that seems like a pretty good time.
And then he did leave this year, right? And they did the announcement. They had this like new team. And I was like, okay, perfect. They realized the issue here. And then he played the next 2 tournaments.
I would have actually really loved to see him a year ago go to a different team. I wouldn't have liked to see him go into coaching. I still hope that he doesn't go into coaching, to be honest.
Where do you reckon? Well, like Lim Vision?
Well,
New Happy would have been really nice to see.
I've heard the rumors that there's... Again, these are all rumors, but like the fucking latest one that's come up around Advent is Advent's going to build a team with, I think it was Orman, Freeman, Soaking, and Kaze or some shit like that. I'm like, wait, we're just playing Vici 2015
That's
again.
just playing for fun at that point.
No, right? I know, but that's still the thing is about that though. Like, I think that's actually not a bad thing to have that team exist in China.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, that's another like Steel Helmet type boomer squad that these teams like they're actually not awful. Like Steel Helmet. They're fucking. They're not going to do anything, but they're not terrible shooters. They have a lot of experience. They're a team that players like the Lin Vision guys and the New Happy guys and whatever are going to have to beat going through these qualifiers, and they're not going to roll over and die for free. You're actually going to have to be pretty decent to beat those guys.
But would you not rather have let's say Advent and Kaze join a New Happy?
Well, does New Happy still exist? That's the first question I have.
I mean, theoretically, New Happy, right? Like I don't obviously. Let's say 4 or 5 months ago when they still had their talents, when they hadn't been blocked out. Right now, it would probably be more like a Rare Atom.
Maybe.
Right? Like a team that's clearly not the best in Asia, but they could have a chance with like some good calling. With some
I don't know, man. I think if you want Advent back in the server, you have to reframe the mindset that Advent's going to be a player that can lead a team internationally. I think at that point, if we put him in another team, it's just Advent's here to nurture some local talent, and this team will forever be just a competitive Chinese team, but we're never expecting to see them go overseas. We're never expecting to see them do anything.
That was the issue, right?
I don't think that's where he is at anymore.
The second they went abroad, it was like instantly like, you're like, wow, fuck, it's 4v5, right? There's no way this team's going to do anything successful. And that was the big limitation. That's why like it feels like, at least with this rumored new Tyloo, it's like I can actually see the side do something internationally. Like I went into Pro League being
I like the idea of Jamian going to IGL. I will say that just to shift the conversation from Advent. I really like the idea of Jamian going to IGL. I think he's a very smart player. I think he's always had a very good mid-round read on the game. That's one of the reasons why he was one of the few consistent pieces. But what I will say is this, though, is that that's a team that's going to turn on him pretty quick, too, if they're not performing.
Maybe.
I think they need a good analyst. I don't know who they have as an analyst, but they need someone to help him.
Cammy is the coach.
Yeah.
No idea what he does. But... Anyway, look, we've talked about Tyloo for 25 minutes, so I think we should move on from that. I mean, the thing is, I don't think that there's really much to sort of say set in stone until we actually get to see, first of all, what the roster actually is.
True.
And second of all, how that roster starts to perform. But I will say, at this point, from what I've seen of Jam Young, I assume in-game leading in those ESL Challenger games that I watched over the last couple of weeks, I didn't hate it. Okay, so I have hope. Which is probably a mistake, but we'll see.
You think you would have learned by now, Jordan?
Yeah.
I know.
I hope that kills you, dude.
What I will say though, before we close that topic off, for both Advent and for Kaze, if we don't see them in the server again in Counter-Strike, I've seen Kaze posting some Valorant bait tweets on his
He's
Twitter.
putting the Vandal,
we have to celebrate their legacy, both as really, really amazing players in Asian Counter-Strike at their time. I mean, Kaze at one point, he might have been the best AWPer in Asia at one point in time. You know, he was certainly someone that people were very excited about. It was like Exuret versus Kaze, who's the best for quite a while. Obviously, Exuret dropped off and disappeared to Valorant. Kaze kept around and sort of fell off a little bit. But, you know, they were both definitely up there. Advent has consistently been heralded as the best in-game leader in Asia for a very long time until Blitz came along. So, you know, both of them have had really massive contributions to Counter-Strike in Asia and particularly in China as well. And what I will also say is that, unfortunately, if Kaze moves on, which it seems that he is, that is the end of Malaysian Counter-Strike now as well.
It's true.
So,
but if he's getting the bag, I kind of respect it. The money in Valorant like is pretty nuts in like Southeast Asia. So I kind of respect it.
I just want to give them their credit. You know, you got to do what you got to do. That's fine. But give them the credit where it's due.
I'd love Advent to stick around for his scouting alone. Like his ability to find talent is sick. I like, you know, who knows who's out there in the perfect world servers ready for Advent to find and.
True. It does feel like China's coming up with a lot of great new talent anyway.
Yeah. All right, let's talk Mongolz, because we are in Mongolia and we have a lot of Mongolian viewers, and I'm sure they want to hear us talk about the Mongolz, who are currently ranked number 12 in the world.
Big up.
That is crazy. I don't know if I ever expected to see another Asian team within striking distance of the top 10 in my life, the way things were going.
I mean, if they didn't choke versus VP, might have been top 10.
Yeah, they might. Honestly, if the way things are going, it feels like they're going to be top 10 by the end of the year. Now, this could be the biggest caster curse of all time, and they're just going to drop off a cliff. But, you know, who's to say maybe they don't do well here at the Nomadic Masters, and if they were to win Nomadic Masters and go on and do whatever they do, you know, for example, Shanghai Major, if they can do what they did at the previous major as well.
I think they're invited to the Yellow Compass as well, which is a good event to be at.
They got invited yesterday, right?
Yeah, so they've got a lot of opportunities to sort of push the issue, and it's only two ranks away from the top 10, which would mean that they would be the first Asian team. Again, like, okay, so you can talk Renegades and whatever.
Tyloo made top 10.
That's what I'm saying. Tylou's the team that I'm talking about. They're the top 10 Asian team. Some people like to say Renegades was another one. I consider them sort of, you know, it's Asia Pacific. If we say Asia Pacific, then yes, but okay, let's just talk Asia in this case. Then it would be Mongolz would be the next Asian team to make top 10 after that Tyloo team, which was I think in 2018. So it's been a while. It's been a long time between drinks, but I genuinely believe that this is a team that can make it into the top 10. They're doing really well for themselves at the moment.
I mean,
and they've got good competition domestically now in Asia as well. Yes. It feels like there's a lot of teams that are starting to kind of push the bar a little bit. And we'll tie this into the FlyQuest discussion as well, because we're talking about the rankings. FlyQuest number 14, kind of hot on the heels of the Mongolz. Now, I don't think that they're necessarily at that same level of the Mongolz in terms of consistency just yet. But I do have actually a lot of faith in this current FlyQuest roster as well. So if both of those teams are performing well, Lin Vision, who really knows what's going on with them, especially if these Tyloo roster changes are something to talk about. But
cooked, right? I can't really, like, they're probably in a rough spot. I feel like if you lose Starry, especially, I feel like that's when already...
The way that I want to frame this whole conversation, though, is not necessarily just about Mongolz, not necessarily just about FlyQuest, but in general, the strength of Asian Counter-Strike, I feel, is definitely going up. Events like this as well are a good example of, you know, maybe the investment coming back into the region. So I'm really quite hopeful that by the end of the year, we're going to see an Asian team in the top 10 again, whether that is Mongolz or whether that is FlyQuest, if we want to include FlyQuest into quote-unquote Asia. But
I'm going to bring in a bold prediction.
All right. He's going to say top 5.
No. I think Mongolz might be top 10 in June.
In June? That's next month?
Yeah.
All right.
Because of
the compass in this event. Because
Valve ranking, they're probably killing it, right? With this into compass, with recent runs. I mean, like, going to 2025, they're in a super nice spot.
But because the thing is, I think that technically speaking, Compass doesn't have that many good teams here. I mean, I can actually just open up the team list as well. Sure. Right? Because
it's relatively competitive.
Like it's a good, but it's not like they're not coming in with like some, you know,
super
an insane, ridiculous.
Like
you know what? I'm just open this one up because I've got the HL TV article right in front of me. You know, because it's Mongolz, it's BetBoom. I think it's ENS over there.
Yeah, Stralis as well. Sashi went for the EU qual.
Yeah, so Sashi, right? Like, you're putting in a field where Mongolz could feasibly...
I can read it right now. Astralis, Complexity, Eternal Fire, Heroic, Mongolz, Furia, BetBoom, ENS, Big, Sashi, Ninjas in Pajamas, Cloud9. So there's a few good teams.
Like, there's good teams, but it's not like you don't have the top 5.
They're not
you don't have an automatic loss.
Yeah, if you think about it, right? You got Cloud9, got 2 players currently. You got NIP, who are just fucking dog shit. You got BetBoom, who are horrible to watch. I don't know if you watched them at Datcha.
Yeah.
dead last in your own tournament, getting 13-0'd.
Sashi is
Never a good sign.
obviously
Sashi,
all right.
they're good online. I haven't
but
seen
it's
them
not-
on land.
Yeah,
But you know,
we'll see.
we're gonna see, right?
Yeah.
Like Furio's got Kai, right? And then
Instantly,
Mongolz
yeah.
has also been a good matchup versus Furio anyway.
Honestly, I'm with you. I think honestly they
Genuinely,
should come into this
this-
tournament pretty confident. I think
this should be
Big
a
are
top four.
very beatable.
Top
Top
four
four is
is
not mental.
expected, and they
Yeah.
could make
Yeah.
a run for top 2.
I think Big
Sure.
are very beatable as well. Like realistically, playoffs feels like a lock in.
Like
I know,
other
I
than
don't wanna curse
Astralis
it,
and
but-
Eternal Fire, there's no one I look at in this team list, and I think, you know what, the Mongolz isn't
Called.
at least 50-50.
No,
I mean,
I'm with
Complexity
you.
actually, funnily enough, Complexity Mongolz is always a really
I'm
good
with
matchup.
you. I think they can beat Complexity. Genuinely,
Yeah.
like I honestly, I'm like,
I think Mongolz has a winning record versus Complexity and Best of Threes.
yeah.
Yeah.
This tournament, I'm actually very hopeful for them at Compass. But that's all they got the invite. Like that is huge.
Yeah.
Like genuinely, they should come into it.
So-
Hopefully, coming off the back of this, very confident and go into that
Yeah.
thinking, "Hey,
So
we've just
if-
done well."
There's actually a pretty good chance of them breaking those last 2
Mm.
ranking spots over here just from the Compass and Nomadic Masters if they do well over here.
I'm trying to
That's
think
pretty cool.
who's currently 10-11.
I will
If they're not in the
just-
tournament as well, right? Then
Yeah.
It is gonna update today, is the thing as well.
Yeah, and I think
So
Mongols
we'll
will probably
see.
drop down to like 14 or something
Yeah, we'll
today.
see what happens.
But otherwise, you're looking at VP on 9, Eternal Fire
Yeah.
on 10, Liquids on 11.
Liquids,
Heroics on 12.
that one's. a
Oh,
little
it has
bit-
updated. So Mongols has dropped down to 15.
Oh yeah, they have. The Mongolz
Yes.
is 15 and FlyQuest is 16 as of recording.
Which, again,
Okay.
like 143 points versus number 10 is like 239, right? Like, basically, if they can outperform Complexity, Astralis, and Eternal Fire here, you could see them actually, make
Yeah.
it into top 10.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, I think it's awesome. I'm just happy that finally there's a couple of teams that are like quote unquote worth watching. Because for a couple
Yeah,
of years
well,
it
yeah,
really
yeah.
felt like, we're gonna send our team over and they're gonna get fucking twisted.
Yeah.
They're just gonna go 0-2, whatever Swiss stage or bracket stage, and they're out of the tournament. They didn't win a map. We were excited if they got 10 rounds. Like if they lost 16-10, it's like, they got double digits.
Yeah.
Sweet. But now we've got, I mean, I don't know how much you guys necessarily care about the Aussie team, but we've got the Mongolz, who obviously I'm a big fan of.
Right.
I like watching FlyQuest play well as well.
Mm.
And it feels like we've got 2 reasonably competitive teams on an international level.
Mm.
I think there still needs to be a little bit more from FlyQuest in terms of, we want to see more than just the one result. Like we saw them do well at Chengdu. They're playing at Dallas, I believe, this week. So
Yeah.
we'd like to see something similar at Dallas. And then we can start to say, okay, there's that consistency starting to come
Mhm.
through from them. I think we've definitely got that from the Mongolz in plenty of instances. So if both of those teams continue to perform the way that they are, then actually, people start to give a shit again about the region,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
exactly what we want. And I'm feeling that over the last probably, I would say 6 months or so, people have actually started to kind of get a little bit more invested in Asian CS. And I'm talking the kind of people who would previously be like, these teams are all dog shit. Why do they even deserve
Yeah.
a spot?
Well, yeah, it used to be a joke, right? Like
Yeah.
at major pick'ems where it'd be like, pick
Oh,
the
Mongols
Aussie and
or
Asian teams
Greyhound.
0
I mean,
3.
it was-
It was
Yeah,
like a running thing, and then obviously that's where the fuck your pick'ems came from. So
Yeah.
like, I'm glad that now it's like it's the other way where it's like, do not ever put an Aussie or an Asian team as no 3 because they will get a win.
Yeah.
So it's like even that is like quite already a complete change in
Well,
narrative. Like, I got casual mates who are always like Asian Counter-Strike, you can always
Correct.
guarantee a
Yeah.
win. So
I mean, I can say anecdotally, obviously this podcast gets a lot more viewers now than it did 6 months ago. And I think that's just because the teams are performing better. People are more interested in hearing about the region. I felt like it really did get a bit of a boost with the recent RMRs and the major, obviously
Sure.
with the Mongols doing well at the major. But,
Cologne, Katowice, Mongols
Yeah,
been doing
yeah.
pretty well recently at the big events.
I think Shanghai Major is perfectly poised for a good performance from an Asian team because, we've had this build, we've had the Mongols doing really well for themselves. FlyQuest seem to be doing pretty good, going on the up and up. It's an event in Asia. People are starting to care about Asia again as well. If a team performs decently at that event, whether it's one of these 2 teams that we're talking about or, someone else that pops up, Linvision, potentially, who knows, Tyloo, this new Tyloo roster, if that really
Maybe.
bangs, who knows? That really galvanizes a region. And I can feel, and I don't know if I'm on the copium right here, being someone from Asia, from Asia Pacific, if you want to go
You're
with that.
honorary Asia. it's
I'll
okay.
take it.
Yeah.
Am I on the copium a little bit here with that because this is the narrative that I want to see, so I'm trying to sell that narrative, or is that the narrative that's actually occurring? I feel as the narrative that is actually occurring. I'm going to sell it. I don't give a fuck. I've had enough time. When we started doing this podcast, if you look back at the very first episode, the title of the episode is Asian Counter-Strike is in the worst state it's ever been. That is episode number 1, and I can't say the same anymore. I felt it was going down for quite a while. It felt like for a year and a half, 2 years after Valorant came out, Asian Counter-Strike was just on this downward trend. We were losing regions, Korea, Japan, Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, like all these regions just don't really exist anymore. And that sucks. That does suck. But I feel as though in the last 6 months, it started to turn around and started to go back up. I think that's really positive.
I mean, put it this way: I've spoken to like a few people who are in like top 20 teams, and they always say to me like they're scared of the Mongols.
Yeah,
like, they find them so scary to play against. So, like I think like that already, like they're like infamous within like top EU teams. They're like fucking no man, the Mongols are so difficult to play against. So like already that's a good sign. Like you got top teams who like struggle to play against them. South American teams hate playing against them. So it's like
especially because I actually think that right now minor regions, especially at the last major, like I think South Americans, Bane and whatnot, had the best read on the metagame. I actually think right now, as far as, again, I'm talking mostly about the very top level, but as far as the half-buy meta is concerned, I actually think that Asian Counter-Strike is the best in the world at this right now, because I swear to God, it's only Mongolz who actually comes in with proper strats for their half-buy rounds. The amount of big events that Mongolz wins because they pull out like a really cute piece on a Tech 9 strat that they have is ridiculous. Everyone else, again, recently started to change a bit more, but over the last year, everyone else is buying fucking deagles. Like, oh, if we get a headshot, we get a headshot, right? This is the thing that I really like about having different regions, is that they do come in with like their own little tips and tricks, their own little things that they're very good at. And once the mechanical difference isn't really there anymore, once you have a few more of these IGLs around the block, right? Like credit to Dobu as well, by the way, over in Atox. He's doing a great job, even if I think the roster management is questionable. But, this is where we are actually seeing that resurgence. And the best thing about this is that I could see a world where, because in the next year onwards, the open circuit means there's so many tournaments. If there's people like MESA who want to expand out and they want to figure this out, we might see Central Asia entering the conversation. And where we've lost a lot in the Southeast Asia, I know a lot of people from Kazakhstan are really upset about the fact that they don't have servers to play on. They don't have a circuit that they have access to. I know a lot of people in surrounding areas of the Kazakhstani region as well who are about that life too. I know there's actual good, trade parts and trade routes as well between these regions. We could, for the first time in like Counter-Strike, hell, maybe even a lot of esports. I'm not that ancient, right? But like in terms of what I've seen over the past 10 years, I've never seen Central Asia properly activated. We could feasibly see Central Asians also now starting to get involved in the server, starting to get involved in the circuit, and that would be nuts if we actually got that.
True. Just to play devil's advocate here, and feel free to like debate me on this. The only counterpart I said to you about, well, not even a counterpart, so I agree that Asian Counter-Strike is and has got recently, especially, a lot better. However, the only thing I'd say is I think most smaller regions have actually got a lot better. I think, like at the moment for me, I think North American Counter-Strike, I feel like is getting better. We're actually like, at least in like this, I tried to watch a lot of tier 2, especially a lot of my friends are commentators for it. I tried to kind of clue in, and it seems to be quite a lot of investment. Like nouns look good. Wildcard apparently going through changes, but the ideas that they're going through look pretty good. So you got these kind of smaller teams. I also think South American Counter-Strike starting to pick up a little bit in the sense of it's no longer just Furia. Like even now, like Furia is kind of like, a lot of question marks around them where like Pain are coming through, Imperial are coming through, Legacy actually look very good, come off the back of the RMRs. I mean, you've got like quite a few things now where I think in general, a lot of these smaller regions are actually getting really competitive, which is sick. And I think a lot of it stems from with the circuit opening up. There's going to be overlaps. There's going to be tournaments where, it's just not feasible to play both of them, so you have to pick, right? I think because of that, it will open up a lot more. So, not saying that, I think all scenes are getting quite good as well. You know what I mean?
I completely agree with you, but the nice thing about this is, I think the next steps for Asian Counter-Strike, Asian Pacific, to bring in the Aussies as well, is there's two. One, the Central Asia thing that I mentioned. The other is, due to tournaments like CCT and Relog start having like any sort of online presence here that leads into a tournament invite and whatnot. For the Relog LAN that's happening, and to those of you guys who don't know, in October there's Relog Media is holding a LAN in Serbia. That's like sort of all of the RES circuit and everything's coming together.
Studio LAN's that thing, right?
Studio LAN, $250,000.
I'm not saying no to it.
Money.
Yeah.
And they've got 2 teams from South America coming in, and because of the way they held the qualifiers, because there's 4 tournaments for the Latin American region across like 6 months, the best teams couldn't attend all of them. So because of an upset win or two, we actually have like a team called Team Solid, which are completely unknown to the international scene. Solid has made it to the 250K LAN, basically.
Damn, all right.
Right, so the next thing for Asia is that I think this is actually what leveled up Australia a couple of years ago. I think this is why the Greyhounds players right now are good. Is that if we get a team like Mongolz that is completely disconnected from the local events because of the fact that they just invited all the internationals, so they don't need to play a Challenger League to go to Pro League. They didn't need to play the Armas to go to the major or whatever the major invite's going to be. Right? If we can get to that point, I think that would generally revolutionize the region in the same way we've seen for South America.
It incentivizes the race for second, right? Which I think is like a big thing. Like, I mean, in a way, it's kind of a good thing having that person to reach up to. But like now with the opportunities for more teams to, because that was the big thing. I think with Asia especially, it was always like, sadly, it was like only the top dog got the invite, and it was normally kind of the same team for a long time. Where that even if you're second place, it was like, well, unlucky, like it doesn't make a difference. Nowadays, it actually does. Like, it's going to be quite interesting because there's going to be overlaps. I mean, looking at the calendar for next year, it's like ESL into Blast into PGO into Starlad. Like, you literally, there's no way you can play every event. So there's going to be, I'm assuming they're going to have invites to every region. They're going to have to pick the tournaments, and that means second and potentially even third, fourth might even get chances to play international lands as well, which is sick, right? You have so many opportunities now.
Yeah. What I would say is, I think another point that's really important to consider when we're talking about reviving Asian CS, whatever, is domestic tournament operators existing as well. It felt like for a while there just wasn't anyone endemic to the region running tournaments. I mean, there was tournaments in China, but China's China and it's very like isolated, and no one really was able to play in them. You didn't even really see any coverage of them outside of maybe a Wikipedia page or something like that. But we're talking about things happening like this event that we're at now. Extreme Zone, for example. Those kinds of events popping up a little bit more and more often. That is the incentive, I think, as well, for these sort of teams that are outside of the top one, like outside of the Mongolz, outside of the FlyQuests. You want to have tournaments for the Atoxes, for the Rooster, for the BNK, for those kinds of teams to come and play in domestically within the region. Maybe for like Rare Atom, for example, as well. Like these kinds of teams that aren't the top team in their country or region, to come and play in, but still have some kind of competition. I think that's really, really positive signs as well. So, I mean, all signs pointing toward the good as far as I'm concerned, and I'll keep my fingers crossed that things are going to keep heading in that direction. But this open circuit business looks interesting. We'll see how that sort of goes in 2025. But at least for now, it's on the rise.
It was only positive, right? I was trying to think about it the other day. I was talking with like a few other casters. Like, I can't really see a downside to the open circuit thing. It feels.
Well, listen, the thing that everyone always says is burnout. But very frankly, the nice thing is that TOs are actually, saying fuck you to each other. And they're overlapping.
Yes, yeah.
Like, the overlap actually, I think, helps with the burnout. Because when you physically cannot attend every event,
and in a selfish way, it helps us too, right? Because like, especially even for us, like it gives hopefully more opportunities.
I think burnout's in my opinion, again, it's a very important thing to examine. The mental health of players is incredibly important. That being said, an esports career is realistically going to be 4 to maybe 8 years if you're really stretching it out. Even for the players, as much as it might seem like, hey, this is a little bit, too much for me, I can guarantee you 3 years down the line, they're going to look back and think, actually,
I wish I would have done
was
more.
Quite nice to have had 11 more $1 million tournaments added, right? The sheer amount of prize money, the sheer amount of sponsorship opportunity, the sheer amount of like access that you get. Sure, you're getting burnt out a little bit at the time, but I'm sure right now, I mean, if players look back towards what was sort of happening over the past few years as well, with so many teams not being able to actually attend, with so many players who probably had a harder time breaking through and everything. We've not really had Cinderella runs the same way. Buyouts always seem like they're more of a mess because there's fewer things to compete at, so it feels like you can't really figure out the right time and everything. I really think that there are negatives, but even those 5 years down the line, if you ask the same players, what would you have rather had? 6 more tier 1 event appearances, 4 more stadium appearances, or nothing.
Yeah, and I guess also as well, a lot of teams now, which is a really good thing, is that they're taking that very seriously. Like, I mean, all of them, like all the top dogs have, sports psychologists and like all of this like ways to help with that. So it feels like it is something that's taken serious. But I think what you're saying is spot on, because there is forced overlap. You're gonna have to choose, and teams also gonna have to choose. They're gonna get, especially if you're the big hitters, you're gonna get invited to all of them. So you're gonna have to really kind of take your pick, which will be quite interesting to see where things go with that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's something that's like uniquely esports, though. You know what I mean? Like there is burnout that happens in sports for sure, but I think that a lot of that is same country, same sort of location. Maybe you have like I don't know, sort of World Cup qualifiers and things can fly around a little bit, or like friendlies at the before a season.
Yeah,
But
less travel, right?
yeah, right.
Yeah.
I think it's something that, going from, for example, Mongolia into the Middle East. We're talking about the Mongols. You know what I mean? Like, it's quite a big shift, time zone wise, and like culturally, and going across over to America and things like this. So I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest. I think maybe if PGL with a bit more, Star Ladder, cool to see them coming back, but there's not really as many tournaments that they're putting up. But to see PGL maybe kind of keeping it around to the same sort of locations.
I'm assuming is it
not
all
going
Romania,
crazy,
or
like,
I mean, we don't know anything yet.
Yeah, nothing's really
right?
confirmed location.
Because especially because we have to keep in mind PGL is probably going to have some stuff in China as well, because they're obviously very close.
Yeah,
to
they got a partnership with Perfect World, right?
Yeah, again, don't know the details, but it's safe to assume that they're going to have, like, if there's going to be events in Asia, they're probably going to have at least 2 a year, I would imagine.
Cool.
Yeah, but just to have that worked out, I think would be pretty massive, and
even
quite a big
this
change
trip,
to
I
the
can
circuit.
understand, like, right, even going from like Betboom Dacha in Serbia then to Dallas, like, dude,
It's also just the timing as well,
yesterday. Like, I was
because-
fucking knackered. So
because of like how budgets work and stuff like that. Ideally, what we'd want is to get out like a week early.
yes,
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you have like time to adjust or whatever, but you have to be very quick, and you have to do all the little hacks and all the little.
The thing is,
and even then, you're not going to be like,
as much
fully
as we
rested.
would like to say that we'd like to get out a week early, that won't be possible, right? Just to also play devil's advocate. Even if there was a budget, sure, for us, that's fine. But even if I imagine myself as a commentator who's maybe, like a machine or a sponge, if they were, for example, doing this, they can't get in a week early.
Yeah,
They have,
no,
like,
I
something
don't.
else.
When I say we, I mean
No.
the collective
But what I mean,
we or
even
whatever.
for
but
the teams, right? Like,
Yeah.
they'll probably have another event like a week before.
yeah,
So
it's true,
even if,
it's
for
true.
example, Mesa's like, hey guys, we love you for a week in, and the only trade-off is you need to do a few more like pieces of content, because that's what allows us to monetize the sponsorship
for
enough.
sure.
The problem is going to be the team, like, for example, maybe, let's say we had Astralis over here or whatever. Astralis could just say, well, yeah, but we were just playing the $500,000 global finals last week, so we can't be there, actually.
But this is also maybe a space that we want to get put into, is like, if we're going to do an open circuit, surely maybe you have to choose.
I mean,
you're doing
that's
like
what
you're
we're
doing like
hoping for.
80% PGL, 20% ESL.
I mean,
and you become a dominant PGL squad or whatever. you know what I mean?
Ideally, we'd, like, in an ideal world, I would love to see like teams align a bit more with tournament operators, not as a partnership thing. That's sort of my key takeaway, because I really liked the idea, and this was the one thing I liked about the partnership thing when Flashpoint was happening. If Flashpoint had like good teams, I would have loved the idea that, you know what, outside of like 4 events a year, we don't have the top teams at anything, right? Like, because that just makes the 4 events more hype, and also Counter-Strike's at such a fucking deep level of talent where literally the top 20 teams, all of them are sick. It's kind of nuts when you think about that. Like, you actually have.
Surely
like,
that counters it, saying that you don't want invites, because like that top 20 changes so often, right? Like,
oh, I mean, I don't mean like tied to an operator in the sense that it's a permanent
It's
invite.
like,
I just mean like,
hated,
for example,
like, partnership
maybe
leagues.
G2's just like, hey, Romania and China makes more sense because of our fan base. So you know what, we are going to prioritize any invites that we're getting.
Yeah, right,
I don't mean like in a permanent invite slot.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, like, the one thing
I hate the
love
permanent
about
invites,
yeah,
don't
the one
get
thing
me
I
wrong.
love about 2025 is just like getting rid of that. Like, Valve have kind of stamped their foot down, which is I think a really good thing, because I mean, one of the best stories, and I guess it's a big thing with Asia as well, is that, I mean, obviously it's the same with EU, is you get these occasional, like, obviously for us being from Britain, ITB, right? Like that probably never happen. It will never happen again. I don't think we'll ever have a UK team ever make top 8. It's never gonna happen. Endpoint are never gonna do it.
Hey, he said
Love the
that
boys.
Asian CS was never going to come back up again too. You don't doubt UK too
True,
much.
but, like, you know
actually,
what I
he
mean?
didn't say that. I should clarify. Jordan never said that.
We were kind of, it was one of those
Probably
things
did
where-
at one point.
But yeah, so like, that's what I love about the, like, I guess about the major, and hopefully in 2025 we have opportunities like that where, like, maybe, like, let's say I'm talking about UK, we do get an endpoint, you somehow make a run through a qualifier, or like a Verdant or a Viperio, like they did at the RMR, like, it's just like would never happen. So that's why I love the open circuit thing. So I think
Jordan, I do want to ask you a bit about the Aussie scene though in this regards, because like obviously you guys have had some of the, I can't remember if it's CCT, but you guys have actually had some like
We had CCT.
European operators like offer up
LPL
some
didn't it,
interest.
right?
Yeah.
Is that something that might scale going into the next year? Has there been any discussion around this? Like, why not?
I actually don't know. From what I've heard, there's going to be another season of CCT. I guess on the back end of this year, but I don't know. I don't know what's going on with
Does that qualify to anything internationally?
It was supposed to. I don't know if it ended up. It's a bit cooked.
Yeah,
Let's
because
just say.
there's no Aussie teams at global finals.
No,
right?
I'm pretty
Not
sure it
global
was.
finals, but I'm wondering.
There was supposed to be a There was supposed to be a slot, but I don't think
There was
that.
supposed to be stuff for one of the online finals, right? Not the
Yeah,
global
I don't think they ended
finals.
up going. It was
right.
Vertex, which is BNK,
Yes.
won it.
Yeah.
I don't remember if they ended up going, but yeah, I don't know what's going on with AUCS at the moment because it does feel like we're in a bit of a weird spot where everything else is kind of going up and up and up, and AUCS is kind of on the downward slope because a lot of our products were ESL products. We had ANZ Champs, which was like the go-to. That was the competition in ANZ. It's been replaced by ESL Challenger League ANZ, but that's not really even remotely as good of a product as what ANZ Champs was.
You're not on LAN as well, right? Anymore?
No,
Like,
no, but I mean, we were never on LAN, but for ANZ Champs, we had a studio show.
something, yeah.
We had it 3 days a week, and there was proper format. You know, every team was playing multiple best of threes, 16 teams. You know, it was great. Players loved it, talent loved it, viewers. No one watches ANZ CS anyway, which is why it didn't exist anymore. That's the problem. But then at the end of the day, you get it replaced by ESL Challenger League, which is 2 BO1s a night, weird times, run by people from overseas. Broadcast isn't really up to scratch in comparison to ANZ Champs. So it feels like ESL has definitely taken a step away from ANZ, and I understand their reasons for doing that. They have chosen not to focus on the domestic products quite so much anymore. But the issue with ANZ, specifically at least, is there isn't someone that's come in to fill that same hole. CCT doesn't do that. LPL, which is the operator in New Zealand, are running CCT. They were running CCT. They used to have their LPL Pro League as well, but it was never the same. It was never as good of a product. They didn't ever do as good of a job as ESL did. So no one's really found their feet in that respect. So a lot of players and teams are not feeling good about ANZ CS.
You know how I always used to say just move to Perth, right? And that's always been my argument, in case you guys aren't up to date with the
ping-wise
tea time lore,
yeah.
is you can just play Singapore from Perth. But I think that's not enough. I think the teams need to move to Mongolia.
I mean, that's not going to happen, but
listen, Urcast was sent there as a prophet to bring them
as
over to the promised land.
Yeah.
Right? This is the situation we need. We need all of the best Aussie teams to up and leave, come to Mongolia, because let's be honest, cost of living in Australia is ridiculous. You can probably live over here on your parents' pocket money because of, Sydney and whatnot being so stupid expensive.
Yeah.
Come to Mongolia, 6 months a year, you're here. Great Counter-Strike scene to take part in. There's LANs all the time, by the way, because MESA is doing a lot of local LANs almost all the time. You know what? There's probably good boot camp areas as well, because
you play Asia ECL.
PC cafes.
Yep.
Asia ECL is pretty competitive.
It's time. It's time for Australia to migrate.
Yeah. I mean, this is the difficulty I think for ANZ is that it's a very expensive economy just in general. So to do something like what MESA is doing here, it costs exorbitant amounts to run an esports studio, esports tournaments, this and that in ANZ. And that's why things like, for example, IEM Sydney are like, oh, are we going to get an IEM Sydney again? We're not really sure. It's very expensive, obviously, to fly people in and feed people and occupational health and safety and all this and that. You don't have to worry about all of that in a lot of these other countries like China, Mongolia. China especially is taking a lot. There's so many things. I'm going to China every couple of months at the moment for esports events, and it's just because they can operate it so much cheaper than you can anywhere else.
Just for context, I just checked in case the viewers want an idea. The average income of Sydney, I just checked, is $80,000 a year US.
Yeah.
The average income of Mongolia, which I remember was about, would be about $500 a month to $6,000 a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing is, even $80,000 in a Sydney is not enough to buy you a property or anything like that. That's the problem.
Same
so
as London.
It's such a high cost of living.
So the average monthly salary is $436 in Mongolia.
Yeah, exactly.
While in Sydney it would be about what?
$8,000.
Yeah.
$8,000 or something like that.
I just think it's such a big ask though, right? To take that gamble. If you're an Aussie.
No, I mean I am half memeing. I won't lie.
Yeah.
But that being said,
then again,
frankly
Savage is doing it.
We also the other thing that again I will always say is that engaging in an esports profession is a privilege, not a right.
Yeah.
Right? And unfortunately, it does come with the fact that if you are living in a place where salaries are that high, where cost of living is that high, where cost of a camera operator is so high as well, right? Just to have the day rate of a camera operator, correct me if I'm wrong, Jordan, I doubt it's underneath $1,000.
I have no idea. But yeah, probably something around that.
Yeah, if you're getting a freelance person, right? If you don't want to have a fixed studio, it's just, unfortunately, unless you guys are coming in with Denmark levels of talent, because obviously that's another country that's very similar. Unless you're coming in with just, 2 sets of generational teams, it does feel
Well,
unlikely that it'll go up.
I mean, if we're going to keep going on this trajectory, I think the actual issue is that you can't, like Aussies and New Zealanders, ANZ people won't watch ANZ CS. Like you need to, the benefit of like Mongolia, for example, is Mongolians like watching Mongolian CS. There's a lot of people that are invested in
fan
Mongolian
base,
Counter-Strike. Whereas ANZ, there's a lot of people that play Counter-Strike, but why would you, as an Aussie, watch ANZ CS? Like, why are you sitting down on your Tuesday night watching Greyhound versus fucking Meat Grinders, a team you guys have probably never heard of? Okay. Why am I watching that when at 11 p.m. I can watch
Love
GT
Island.
versus FaZe or Love Island? Okay. And if we can't get the Aussie eyeballs on the Aussie stuff, I mean, that's where that's how you monetize. You're not
Sure.
going to get money from international viewers, because first of all, they're not going to watch ANZ CS. Second of all, they're not worth as much as an Aussie viewer to
Aussie
sponsors and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like we want to advertise Australian. Menulog, for example, was a big sponsor. Dare, which is an iced coffee brand.
Menulog,
Menulog's like Deliveroo.
Yeah.
Menulog and Dare were the two big sponsors of ANZ Champs, and it's like someone from fucking Mongolia watching is never going to buy a Dare. It's just a wasted eyeball in a sense.
Yeah.
So you need those Aussie viewers, and part of the problem for Aussie stuff was that, like,
What kind of viewership do you get?
well, it depended, but I think on a good day we could get up to a few thousand views for like
Let's
a
say
Greyhound.
FlyQuest versus BNK.
Yeah,
right?
like that would probably get a few thousand views if it's on HLTV.
Okay.
People are betting on it. The issue is 75% of that is not even Aussies. It's like
Yeah,
Russian
yeah.
people
Right.
betting.
Betting,
and-
yeah, for sure.
Because I do wonder about, and again, this enters into a very different conversation, which I feel like esports doesn't want to have. But like, is there not a chance of crowdfunding in the Aussie scene? Like,
I don't think so.
or there just isn't the amount of.
I just
like,
don't think there's enough
fan
people.
investment.
I don't think there's enough people in ANZ that care about Counter-Strike, that care about esports, that care about Australian Counter-Strike, that care about Australian esports. There's a very small subset of people, and I don't know if maybe it's the same problem in the UK, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like
Yeah.
there are people that watch and there are people that like it, but they're not going to put their money towards it to crowdfund it when they could just watch the best in the world anyway.
But so that's obviously true. So because Pakistan has a similar issue, because I think any place that has a lot of English-speaking population will have a similar issue, right? That it's very easy to access the best teams in the world. Well, Mongolia, for example, obviously a lot less English speakers, even though there are quite a few. They're a lot more fluent and a lot more comfortable in their own language. So that is obviously natural viewership. But I do wonder because, for example, in Pakistan, I know some of the numbers that we probably have like, I'll give a rough ballpark. I don't think I'm allowed to disclose numbers, but let's just say upwards of 500,000 people who tune into international Counter-Strike tournaments.
Yeah, what's the population of Pakistan?
Very high.
Yeah, exactly.
No. But what I mean, but what I mean is, for example, in terms of the people who watch domestic is very low.
Right.
So even there, you're probably not breaking past like 2,000-3,000.
Sure.
But the difference is that those 2,000-3,000 people who are like actually tuning in for domestic, they also understand the scene on a much more intrinsic level in terms of understanding like financial requirements and things like that. So I have seen, and again, in Pakistan, unfortunately, it's never been done. But I do have a feeling that at least, for example, in Pakistan, if you were to try and crowdfund something, you could probably get what the sort of financial equivalent of $10 would be.
Zero chance.
Out of the, like
Zero chance in ANZ. I think
Really?
there would be like, you'd be lucky if there'd be 500 people in Australia that cared enough about Australian Counter-Strike to put money towards it. I think it's hard enough to get people to watch Australian CS to begin with, and they don't even have to pay for it.
True.
When you think about it, like how many people are actually invested in the scene in the same way that we would be, or that players would be. Like Australia is a country of 25 million people now, and what you got to understand about Australia is there's a lot of things that you can do with your time that are not esports.
Yeah.
There's fucking amazing beaches. We have beautiful nature, landscapes, etc. So you can be that kind of person. We've got a great economy, so you can
Travel,
explore
you
your
can do a lot.
passions. You can travel. Fucking sporting mad. The country is sporting mad. We have crazy sporting culture, So the amount of people that actually fall into video gaming to begin with is not that high in comparison to, say, somewhere like Mongolia, which is fucking frozen over for 6 months.
Yeah.
Or even further from that go from computer gaming, video gaming into esports. It's just like there's just not that many people.
I also feel
That's
like it's
the
a
problem.
culture thing. So I know, like, I think I don't actually know Mongolia, but I know for England the biggest issue with like UK is the culture around games. Like for example, like if I said to like I should mention, so for those who don't know, before I was in esports as a caster, I worked in finance, right? So for me, quitting a job in finance to become a caster, even though I make more money as a caster, was like my family were like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Like it was like a crazy thing. It was like
The sensible people, yeah.
I was like my family having like an intervention. Like, you sure? Like, do you know what you're doing? I was like, yeah. Like, it's like the culture in England is very much like video gaming is just like in your mum's basement as a nerd.
Yeah.
They don't realize this kind of thing, like getting to go to Mongolia.
Be fair,
for
I
a
think
LAN.
that's also pretty prevalent almost everywhere outside of maybe very niche parts of Asia. Because like even for example for me, right, like I mean, average salary for a very good job after I graduate university, and I graduated from like one of the best university in the country, right, would be probably like $400 a month if I'm doing like pretty well for myself. So obviously, you know, I'm not gonna say numbers, but obviously I do better than that as a caster, and I've been doing better than that for a caster for a while now. But it's not the financial thing; it's more of the sort of social status, as well as just, you know, guaranteed work later on and everything like that. That I think is very much a concern for pretty much everyone. So I don't know if that's necessarily sort of the hang up.
Oh, I think Oz is pretty similar. Like my uncle lives in Melbourne. He actually went to watch me do the desk at Melbourne in the Rod Laver.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
He was in Rod Laver.
So he came swung by. But like even like, you know, I think it's quite similar in Oz to the UK. But like I think Mongolia is probably a little bit more. It's like or like if you go to like Denmark, for example, it's like it's a big part of like it's a culture thing where like just because I don't know how it changes or where it stems from, but I know in like Denmark and Sweden, if you were to say, like, I mean, like people like the NIP and the Astralis guys, they are like big celebrities.
But I think that's more recent as well, because even if you go back,
nah, it's
like
not. Like I was speaking to
Anders
about it. Like the culture in Denmark around Counter-Strike is insane.
No, but that's what I'm saying. I do think that's like the culture is insane as far as like it's a lot more acceptable to play, right? But like as far as seeing it as a viable career, I do think that's like maybe 8 or 9 years ago, that at most. Well,
this is the point that I wanted to make, is that I think in Australia it's not a viable career still to work in esports. So that's why. And you know, you talk about average salary in Pakistan or in Mongolia. You know, if you for example have to earn $500 a month to be like, oh, I'm making good money in Pakistan, I have to make $8,000 a month to go, I'm making a good salary in Australia. You know,
of course,
people can't just go into esports and be like, this is going to work for me and live in Australia. It just doesn't work like that. I'm one of the very, very few lucky people that is able to do it full time. And even for me, I have constantly, every couple of months, I'm like, man, am I going to get enough work in the next couple of months?
The pressure,
you know, and something pops up and I'm okay. But then like, you know, again, another couple of months go by and I'm like, fuck, I haven't gotten a job yet. And then I'm thinking maybe it's time to hang up the boots and think about my long-term future, my career and whatever. So I think it's very hard to sort of make that leap as someone who's like...
Right, so Australia is dead. Okay, we've got it.
Australia's not in a good spot, I don't think. But Asia at least seems to be going on the up and up. So let's move on from that ANZ topic. We've got a couple more. I mean, we're already over an hour, so we might be able to hold some of these in reserve for Friday as well.
Sure.
But one thing that I think we should talk about, because we're at the MESA Nomadic Masters Spring, right? It's spring. Is
summer. It has to be summer.
It's spring.
Yeah.
Well, the event's spring, right?
The event is
spring.
called spring.
Yeah.
Guys, we're going to end in June.
Yeah. So
well, that's true.
Let's talk MESA Nomadic Masters Spring, and what do we think is going to happen? What are we expecting? We've got is it 4 Asian teams? We've got 4 Asian teams.
Yeah, 4 Mongolian teams. Yeah.
No, 3 Mongolian teams and
Mongolian
Vision.
teams.
Yeah.
3.
Oh, my bad.
Chinggis Warriors, Atox, Mongolz, Vision are the Asia teams, and then Gaming Gladiators, Aurora, OG, and Bleed are the international invites. Let's just say. I'm pretty cool. Like, I'm pretty keen for this event. I am pretty cool, by the way. Just saying.
You're pretty
I'm pretty keen for this event.
Just because you've got a CS:GO 2 Asia shirt.
That's right.
One time.
What it is,
I actually need a new one because it's starting to like
peel a bit.
Yeah, it's peeling a bit. So I don't know if they make them anymore.
Got to wash it inside out. So.
Yeah, true. But yeah, I'm pretty keen for this event because, like, look, I look at it on the surface. I'm like, this is not going to be an event that's going to like. It's not like a super, super, super serious event. You know what I mean? Like, people aren't going to come into this event and be like, fuck, we've got to win the MESA Nomadic Masters. But what I think is great about it is that the playing field is quite competitive. I think it's a good opportunity, especially, I feel like what they're trying to do, and this is part of the conversation that they were having on Discord the other day, what they've done with the seeding is that they've basically seeded it so that no Asian team will play against each other in the opening round. No
Yes.
European team will play against each other in the opening round. So the Asia team plays against the European team for round 1 at least, and that's an opportunity for these Asia teams to get a bit of a experience or
against the EU
whatever.
teams.
And I think that's kind of what the goal of this event is, at least from MESA's perspective. Now, I haven't spoken to anyone of them about that. I'm just theorizing, making assumptions here. But my assumption is that they're trying to use this as a bit of a building platform, a launching platform to A, prove what they can do, and B, give the opportunity to the teams from this region to try to sort of gain some of that experience, like you say. So that's why I'm sort of framing it in that, like, this isn't like we're at the fucking major, you know? We're not coming into it like that.
Because we're not coming in with like official seeding and this like
No.
really strict way of going about it. It's quite loose, which is nice.
But I like that it looks like there's no team here that you go, oh, they're definitely going to win the tournament.
Sure.
Yeah.
The thing is, as much as we might say there's not official seeding and everything, and that's what they've said to us as well, if you actually look at what a bracket would look like,
I mean, it hasn't worked
this
out
is
badly.
literally like this is the right seeding.
Yeah.
Right?
It's-
And obviously, in case you guys don't know, maybe Jordan can pop the bracket up, or maybe that's too much work. In all fairness,
It's probably going to be too much work, just saying.
but it's
Look
Aurora
on
versus
HLTV.
Linvision.
TV, yeah.
It's Mongolz versus Gaiman Gladiators, Bleed versus Shanghai's Warriors, OG versus Atox. Again, Aurora versus Linvision makes sense, right? Aurora's probably supposed to be theoretically, third from Europe, right? Maybe.
I would say. Honestly, I think you can make a strong argument that Aurora could win this. Like,
I
don't
no.
think that's
Listen, I think
outlandish,
any of the European teams bar OG could win this.
Awesome.
It's not. I just said they can't win the tournament, guys. I didn't say they're bad. They're bad.
Not that bad. Like OG just get so much hate.
No. Listen, I just think
deserved.
OG's very unlikely to win it. That's a different story. But overall, just as far as this is concerned, the other nice thing is that it is a double elimination as well, right? So you don't have like any of the bullshit like round robin formats where we're going to see, like, for example, theoretically, if Chengiz Warriors doesn't do well, I'm not saying they won't, guys, but theoretically they don't do well, we're not just going to have to see Chengiz Warrior have 4 best of 3s and all of them just getting shafted.
Yeah.
It's
No one's going
double
to day
elimination.
one or whatever, right?
You lose one over here, you're probably against an Asian team in the next one. You lose second. All right, GG. Sorry. Thanks.
But
for
at least you
coming.
get a couple of days of game. I know for Dallas, you lose. Like, you can
You
go,
can go out on day one. Same
yeah,
with
which-
any IEM. Any IEM,
it's
you
quite
can potentially
brutal.
go out day one.
Yeah,
if you lose
it's a
two.
best of one, then a best of 3. You can go home, and that for me, like, it's quite like imagine like flying halfway across the world and then fucking out there tomorrow on your way back kind of thing. It's rough. So at least with this, it's like a little bit of you get.
And the
to stick
other
around
really
and,
nice thing though is with this format is that we get to have fewer games initially.
yeah.
So listen, guys, there's an elephant in the room, is that the last event in Mongolia was pretty fucking bad as far as a technical level is concerned, right? As far as
pretty
servers weren't really set up and everything. And look, I'm sure MESA would admit it as well. It's hard not to admit it when your game is potentially delayed by 24 hours into the next one after it's already started, right? Like, I'm glad that there's going to be room to fix shit, as after day one and everything. So I do think I'm expecting some issues coming into this, but I do think that by the end of it all, we're hopefully going to have a pretty kick-ass event.
Yeah, what I will say about it so far, like in terms of the hospitality that we've received and how the event has been organized and stuff like that, obviously no games have happened yet, but I would say MESA's doing a pretty good job. Like I had an idea, I had an understanding of maybe what I should expect. Neokai vlogging, by the way.
Yeah.
What's
Let's
your
go.
YouTube channel? Where is it going to be?
On Neokai, NE0K.
Neokai.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can see the behind the scenes of all the shit we're gonna get up to.
Or
Like,
if you're watching it on his vlog, you can watch this
Yes.
episode.
come to Geographically Challenged.
On-
Come to Elfishguy.
youtube.com/ElfishGuyOz. There you go.
There you go.
No, what I was going to say is I think, I have, same as you, obviously, I was at that RMR and I was like, ooh, do I, like, it's not that do I want to go to Mongolia again? I do. And I want to be involved in these events and stuff like that. But I don't want to come to an event and just have it be a shit show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm just not going to sign up for that. But I was like, when I was there, I saw the people working for MESA and I thought, these guys actually do give a shit.
Yeah.
They
They
love
fucked
what
up.
they do.
They fucked up
Yeah.
the RMR. There's no question about that. But they do give a shit and they want to do better. And I want to give them the opportunity to do better because I believe in what this can be, if that makes sense. So now that we're back here again, I'll say, everything's gone smoothly. Like we got picked up from the hotel, from the airport, all nice. Great shuttle situation. Like we've never had to be fucking waiting around for shuttles, which by the way, at other events, I've had to wait hours for shuttles
Yes.
sometimes and
Yeah.
it's been horrible. Hospitality's been really good. The food so far has been good. Everything's been good. Hotel leaves a bit to be desired.
It's just
Whatever.
open.
It
now.
will
Whatever.
be good.
It will be good when it's finished. Like when it's
But
finished, that thing should be cooking. You know
everything
what I mean?
is good. Everything's decent so far. So I've got this positive impression of where we're going for this event.
To be fair, I think last time was like hospitality was not really the issue.
No,
last
not
time,
really,
in all
not
fairness,
really.
yeah. But again, we know that the
It's a
people
good
who are doing
baseline.
it love
Yeah.
what they're doing.
So
and
far, the
we're
signs are
hoping it's-
positive. Everyone has been
I-
lovely out the gate.
Listen,
so.
I worked for ESL Australia like full time. I was an employee at the Australian office of ESL when it was starting to build. So from 2016 onwards, and I was involved in a lot of the events from like 2014 that they were running before they became ESL Australia. They were a company called ACL. And I understand what it's like from the tournament operations side. It is fucking hard to run these kinds of events, even if we're talking just domestic events. This one is on a grander scale. You're inviting teams from overseas.
It's going to be an arena in the end,
There's
right?
going to be an arena show. This is going to be a fucking tough tournament to pull off. They pulled off their Nomadic Masters way back in the day. You remember the one that had the blast
2022,
qualifier that you were casting, I think?
Yeah. Dobu 1v5.
Yeah, it seemed like that went really well. And so when I went into that RMR, I was like, great, they're gonna fucking knock this out the park. And I think something, whatever happened there, it is what it is. But I've seen enough to give me faith, and I understand how difficult it is. That I think I really want to see this work. So I want to be there from day dot.
Yeah.
To be involved in it, because I have a great passion for Counter-Strike, particularly in Asia. So I have a vested interest in seeing events like this go well. So I want to be in amongst it. And, so far so good is what I'll say. And hopefully that's going to be the case over the course of the next few days
Friday.
as well.
We'll
Yeah.
see. But I think so far, another thing like that really helps that kind of what you're touching on in terms of, because it's like a little bit more, especially compared to the RMR, it's a little bit loose. We're all quite flexible. The event can kind of be with the RMR. It's very strict. It is very serious.
There was more challenges at the RMR for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things. At least with this, like if there is tech issues, like they hopefully should be a little bit easier to fix because it's in their studio.
That's it, exactly.
Like this is their
And it's not valve associated, so you're not coming in with
they're
100
comfortable.
valve
This is their
requirements.
environment. They know it really well. So hopefully all of these things, they run, from what I understand, like local things.
They run local stuff all the time, yeah.
So this is a place where I think even there is issues they can fix hopefully quite quickly. We're flexible, they're flexible, the tournament's quite flexible. So I think fundamentally, hopefully, just because it's a little bit less serious in that way, hopefully it should just kind of everything just smooth over.
I think that they're, and again, touch wood, whatever. I do think that because of the fact that, like you're mentioning, it's an office space that they're so used to. Last time there was obviously in a different hotel. They had to go do it like inside the hotel and like new networking condition and everything.
Like a conference room or something.
Yeah, it was a ballroom.
I've seen a million like matches over here take place from the MESA streams and everything.
Oh, there you
They
go.
generally go fine.
There we go.
Right, like maybe some hiccups here and there. Now, that being said, will the English stream be fine? We don't know about that. We're gonna find out because they don't normally have an English stream, right?
That's true.
So they are gonna have more challenges in that. Plus, I'm sure all the arena broadcasts and everything is gonna be a fucking
the
pain in
arena
the
will
ass
be
to like
interesting.
get that shit sorted. So it's obviously coming in with more challenges than the normal one, but at least it's a good base to start from.
It's a good test as well, because if this is the first of potentially more in the future,
Sure.
like, yeah, in this case, we could be the guinea pigs, but I think out the gates are so far being pretty good. They've at least got some decent ideas.
Guinea pigs they've got a pretty good life, man.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, exactly. So already, I think it's positive signs that they want to make this potentially maybe something that they consider for the future doing, more events and having an English broadcast and this becoming a bit more regular thing. So yeah, this one might be, there's a potential it might even be a little bit cooked, right? But, if this is where, a couple of hiccups in and in the future it's fixed, then hey, man, I don't mind it for,
I see
for the growth
future.
of the scene.
I see the future where like MESA is obviously in Mongolia doing these kinds of events, and then you've got Perfect World doing a lot of stuff in China.
Yes.
And they're running sort of in tandem, and that's a really positive looking
I would
future
love
for
to see like
Asia.
a MESA Perfect World collaboration,
Yeah.
to be honest. Like
Is
in the
Extremes
future.
Land, but is that Perfect World?
That was
Or was that its own thing?
That was Perfect World.
Sorry,
Yeah, it
which
is.
one?
Okay, sure.
Extremes Land.
Is there any other like Chinese? Cause it's so big, right? There's so much
Extreme Land
investment there.
used to be Perfect World before.
No,
as
so
well,
Extreme.
right?
Okay, I should clarify. I guess Extremes Land is a Zowie BenQ product, as in the Extremes Land name tournament is a Zowie BenQ.
Sure.
But
The
the
operational
operation
team
team was Perfect
PWL,
World this
right,
time
yeah.
around. I
Right.
don't know who was doing it previously. I can't remember.
Is there anyone else in China, bar Perfect World, who does stuff or
so
not
there's-
really?
Heaps. There's heaps of tournament.
There's a lot of tournament
Okay.
operators,
But
but
none
obviously
that-
they
the
do
English.
all tie back to Perfect World.
Right.
Because obviously, that is the overarching operator and everything. And for example, I know that 5e and everyone are technically competitors to the Perfect World as
Okay.
far as tournament operations are concerned, but also they are in the Perfect World ecosystem. So it's kind of weird about that. Yeah.
Anyway, if we're talking quickly about MESA Nomadic Masters before we wrap things up, we're at an hour and a quarter in, so give it another 15 minutes or so. Let's just quickly go through it. I mean, what are your expectations for this? Because I saw this is really funny to me. When I was flying in yesterday, they messaged me and said, "Oh, who's your prediction to win?" Well, I think I'd already given my prediction, which was Mongolz.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'll say Mongolz. Is that a little bit biased? Maybe, I don't know. But I do think that they have a good opportunity to win this.
I do.
But then, as I was flying in, and I think I got the message while I was on the plane, so I didn't get it in time. They said, "Oh, who do you think is going to be in the grand final with Mongolz?" And I was like, I'll go Bleed. And then I looked on Instagram after I sent that message, and all three of you guys had all gone Bleed Mongolz.
Yeah.
And I was like, is that actually where we're sitting? Is it Bleed Mongolz, the two top teams in the event?
Yeah, well, I think
and the
so,
bracket
right?
as well. The
Yeah,
bracket
yeah.
aligns so that they're like
Exactly.
complete opposite. And so that
But
was
I
my
just found it
reasoning.
funny that I was like, yeah, I'll go with this. I did not see it. And then I saw it, and we'd all gone the exact same thing. So did anyone have any conversation with each other? Or
No,
did we
we
all
didn't
just
talk to each
Nah.
other. We don't actually talk to each other. Otherwise.
No.
Yeah, especially these.
we
two.
just knock on the wall, and
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they're in our
Morse code.
Yeah.
next door hotel room. You can hear you guys when you're talking sometimes.
The one thing I will
Yeah,
say as a
talk shit.
caveat that I didn't consider though is that Mongolz is against Game and Gladiators initially, and Gaiman's not going to underestimate them. And obviously, Gaiman's a national team. You know, there's a lot of interesting coherence and a lot of interesting strategy coming out from them as well. That's not the best matchup for the Mongolz in that regard. So there's a world where they could be knocked down to the lower bracket, and then it's always it's tough to do fucking anything from the lower bracket, right? So there is that to consider. But as long as they're able to move past Gaiman, well, then they probably come against Aurora, which is also a tough time. But I do think they've got a better matchup as Aurora. So Mongolz actually has a slightly hard bracket run.
Yeah, but they're all BO3s.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I would
mean,
back
if it was
Mongolz in
B1s,
a
I
BO3.
would feel very confident in Mongolz, actually. But I do think that Mongolz has a bit of a harder bracket run, but I would be surprised if we don't see Bleed in at least top 2.
are you not like a little bit like, oh, Bleed, because they've obviously just had these changes and stuff like that. So does that not weigh in on the
No.
conversation?
Man,
at all for
I've
you?
watched this new team play. They look
Have
good.
you?
They look
Okay.
seriously
Just
good.
so much experience there.
yeah.
I
think
like
that's
the
one of
roster. That's why I've gone like I said, I went with Bleed as well to go into.
The thing is, they
final.
were actually good, like to a degree at the tail end with Vladan and Cirque. They were actually like making
Right.
decent runs in tournaments, and it's just direct upgrades, right?
Yeah.
Nork is like, no offense to Cirque, 10 times the player, especially at the
Right.
moment. And Vladan, I actually don't think Vladan's that bad, but if Jacob comes on the market, you cannot say no.
the
And
thing
also,
is-
Kassad and Jacob have a really good long term. They've
Yep.
been known each
Yeah.
other for
Yeah.
what, like 5+
I mean,
years. at
Kassad
Livery?
saved Jacob's career.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things. I just think like this team, like those are just two like in fact the most shrewd bit of business, great business from Kassad and from whoever else was at Bleed making the decisions.
Anthony Impression Lim.
Yeah.
Hopefully, by the way, and this is a bit of a teaser. I want to get Impression on the podcast on Friday.
Yeah.
So just for everyone
Flew in
watching
today,
at
I
home,
think?
hey,
Yeah.
he's flying tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yeah.
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 We're hoping to be able to record again on Friday this week, which will be a day off basically for the tournament, and we've got Impression and K potentially.
And if any of the
And if anyone else wants to come on.
the
Yeah.
international teams are eliminated,
Tried to get K for this one. He wasn't really available. He said Monday's busy. He's got a kid. Okay, fair enough. Impression flies in tomorrow.
fathers, man.
I
Oh.
know. Imagine having a child in 2024.
I do imagine it all the time. Why can't
but
I
we'll try and get them on Friday. So look forward to that one. And also the topics that we missed, we'll get to them on Friday. Anyway,
Yeah.
continue.
But no, I think like just Bleed. I think they look very good. For me, it was I think Bleed's out of the bracket. I don't think they have any issues. Like just looking at it, and obviously you never know what happens when you come here, but I don't think they have any problems. They're also like even the play like for me like so this is obviously slightly biased. But obviously, I like Cypher as a player. I actually think he looked a little rough at times online, but he is such a LAN player. I've seen it even in the UK domestic LANs where like he does fuck all online, and the second he can see you, like the big thing for Kai is when he can see his opponent, and like this is a cool thing. Like for those who don't know, like it's similar to Pro League for those at home watching. In the setup, like it's
even closer. Than
it's
Pro League,
even
to be
closer. I mean,
honest.
it's what 3 meters, maybe
Not
if
even.
that. Like
Not
it's so close. It's probably from Jordan to tea time is sort of the distance between the teams. Right, it's crazy.
Yeah.
The frosted grass in the team, but like that's when you see players from like Cypher level up. Like, that's when he does his best work when he can like see. He's like, he's very much he's a confidence player.
Right.
He's very cocky. He will shout. He did say they got opening game Chinggis Warriors, right?
Yep.
So let's straight to my breakfast. He was like, "Oh, I'm gonna shout, but like I can't do this Chinggis Warriors, man. That's not gonna be fair." So
yeah, I mean,
I respect that, but like the second he plays against EU
also the
teams-
second you start shouting out Chinggis, you're not gonna have a good time in Mongolia, right? Like
yeah,
in all
exactly.
fairness.
He knows where he's at, but like that's the thing. Like I think that Bleed side of the bracket, I think they'll have no issues. The one caveat I did have to my prediction, I still think Mongols are the favorites. However, I think everybody always is, but I think everybody sleeps on Aurora. This Aurora team.
Yeah, they're second at Melbourne.
They
were second at Melbourne, but
so-
they should have probably won.
Yeah, they're so dead. I mean, if he wants to, this is the thing. If he wants to, Deco can be the best AWPer in tier 2, hands down in my ability was that guy is ridiculous. But it's just the thing is like all it takes is one off day from the Mongols, and Aurora can cause an issue there. So that's my only question mark of like maybe where Aurora could do that side of the bracket. I still think Mongols are the favorites.
I agree that Aurora should definitely be like a solid third option to come in over here. That being said, other than Result, no one on that team is consistent.
No, 100%.
Like that team is so fucking weird.
Yeah.
Because I do not understand it. Kenzie goes from, oh my God, I'm an outsider nuke, I am a demon, you will never catch me, to I'm just gonna stay behind the credit card because I'm dying every fucking round, right? Like that, and then let's not even get into the dichotomy of Deco, right? Like that's an entirely separate conversation. Aurora are like just the strangest fucking team that I've seen as far as like I don't know. I think
they're just a very like mental team.
They are
right off some games,
cases,
especially like in that tier 2 when you just spam in so many games. There's probably some days like we did the global finals where there was they did like 3
they were playing.
The same day.
It was Bet Boom, wasn't it? Bet Boom
Clash, and all this. I think they just come into some games.
And the funniest thing in that Bet Boom
south,
thing,
and it's like
that shows how insane they are. It was like they had a pistol where it was like Deco got put into like a 1v4, and he is on Inferno, jumps out of apps, kills one, and then dies. Right, never gonna expect to win a 1v4 on a pistol. Just starts fucking slamming his desk, like losing it, and it's like. Brilliant. This is what I want to see on person. I want to see like just the head loss.
I do think they just have such a leadership crisis if you're gonna have a shit like that happening, right? Like, I don't know. I hope that they come in and they do really well, and it's a great match versus the Mongols, or they ultimately lose in a tragic fashion.
Is Lucky the oldest? I want to say.
I think
is he like 23?
Definitely in terms of playing experience.
Yeah, but
I think in age, right?
I think it's like
potentially
even if he is oldest,
he's only like 23. Yeah, 23 or 24. Yeah. So it's like, I think you're spot on with the leadership thing. With that, I think that's the only thing that lets them down. They are definitely like a vibes team. If the vibes are good, they can play like so well. But if the vibes are bad, they're all over the place.
But they probably had like Hooch trying to tell them what to do.
I don't think Hooch is with them anymore.
No, exactly.
He left
like in the past. Trying to tell them what to do
and
guide them through. And then I think they've just told them to
I don't know that much
fuck off.
about him. Yeah.
So it's difficult with teams like that. There's some of the CIS teams.
Can I bring
in
a topic, Jordan?
Sure.
Is there a Mongolian team other than Mongols, or maybe just an Asian team? What are you guys expecting? Is anyone going to come through
at this event?
Yeah, at this event and come through and be interesting.
I'd like to see something like Envision. If it's a last hurrah, right? If it's a little last parade for Starry individual, especially for him, right? I want to see him like he's got on a high note. I'd like to see them make playoffs. That'd be cool.
I mean, I think there's definitely a lot to sort of talk to with regard to Envision because they've obviously just brought Flying in. And I assume he's playing at this event. So that is kind of a cool storyline. I just don't think they're going to do well if these rumors are true. Like if they're a team that's kind of like on their last legs, or they know that members are leaving and they've only just brought a new player in, I don't think Envision won't exist. There will definitely be a Envision going forward. It's just that are they in the position right now at this event to be a competitive team? With all the rumors that are going around, with the addition of Flying coming in, I'm not so sure that they're going to be up to scratch to really
I also
compete.
think Flying's really mediocre as an AWPer, and unfortunately he's going to get himself wrecked at this event.
So sometimes though, those skeleton crew teams where they sometimes just come out of nowhere and do something. So.
Listen, I think that Lynn's going to be fine as far as the Starry angle is concerned. Starry's performance is sometimes lackluster, to be honest, regardless. So he can be amazing, or again, he can be pretty much dead weight sometimes. But I feel like, especially if he's theoretically on his way out, he's going to be free to do whatever the fuck he wants to.
Yeah, it's going to be loose, right? Yeah.
But Flying is just a liability when you're going up against someone like Deco, right? Like, I think that's the kind of situation where Deco will just heat up immediately if you get him in an op. I think Linvision's best bet is actually just to try and prioritize a lot on the force buys, just to see if they can make sure that the op isn't actually in their hands on the Aurora side very often. Even then, results cracked. I'm really interested about Atox.
Okay, I was going to say...
Go ahead, why don't you go
Well, I was going to say, I'm not really expecting anything from anyone but the Mongolz. I don't think Linvision's going to do super well. I'm definitely not expecting anything from Chinggis Warriors, unfortunately.
My Zilkenberg goat!
Sorry! I'm sorry, Mongolia.
The Zilken goat!
I know, but look, I'm not really expecting much there. But Atox,
Hey, they got names. Like name value.
They are an
that's
interesting
actually a
roster, that's
decent
for
team.
sure. The only thing is, like, they're a bit up and down. Like, I've been watching them in the ESL Challenger League, and they've been a little bit neither here nor there. I think if they come in and play how they were at, for example, at the Asia RMR, they looked really good there. I was like, holy shit, these guys are going to be fucking legit. They've obviously added Annihilation since then, and you can have you can think your conversations around that one, but whatever. The core of the roster is still quite good. Just the question is, are they going to do any damage at this event?
Let me paint a picture.
I'm not sure.
Okay, let me paint a picture because the first match is versus OG. Right?
Indeed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Winnable.
So we've got Dobu, great IGL. He's the only other, I think, Mongolian IGL who I actually think is worth his salt as far as, really bringing in experience. Was once upon a time a star player, can actually still put up decent numbers whenever he's coming into it, right? Like, Dobu can compete. We know this.
Yep.
Cabal, fucking clutch god. Great late round decision making. Great rotations coming in right there as well. Mick's actually the secret star of this team. I don't understand how Mick does it every fucking time, but he is really consistent. And then you've got Zesta and Annihilation. Zesta, I'm a little bit down on. Annihilation's also just not been very good in CS2. And to be honest, even towards the end of CSGO, he was not doing that well. But you contrast it versus OG, right? Got Heavy God. You know what? Fair enough. That's probably undisputed, really good. Then you've got Nexius, who's pretty good. I'm actually big on Nexius. But you know what? I don't think Nexius is necessarily outright better than any of the riflers who are coming in on the ATOX side, right? I think it's fair to say Fiku might actually be weaker in some cases than Cabal, right? Like, so, you're looking role for role. Modo is...
Do you know what, though? Just to give Modo a bit of his credit, I know he had a bad run of things, but prior to TSM, he was actually, like, crap.
How long's that been?
Yeah, well, actually, no, to be fair, he only joined TSM.
Like 6 months?
Yeah, I'm going to say, it was only like this year, right? But
fine.
Just to give him his credit, like, when I've seen him, I've only watched him once in OG, and it's basically just a Heavy God show, right? But Modo is actually individually very good. I just think TSM is just a fucking shit show, and it has been since it was started in CS. If this OG team actually finds just like a little bit of comfort, which I don't think they have, he actually could play quite well because he can be quite aggro when he wants to, which is kind of fun to watch.
I don't think Modo's gonna be very good over here, to be honest. I think Modo's maybe his confidence has just been absolutely destroyed or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But Modo in the past few months, no matter what team he's been on, TSM or OG, he's not looked very good to me. And very frankly, I think Keto's calling has not gone well.
Yeah.
Right? Like Keto's actually not been able to activate his two best riflers at the same time.
And his personal numbers are taking a hit because he's calling as well, which is already...
I think ATOX could actually come through in a BO3 upset over here versus OG. That's
sure.
Sort of
I don't think that's a
I'm running
wild
in
thing
for.
to say.
Fine, fuck it. They're 100%.
That's a wild.
There you
That's
go.
wild.
Because I can't go out here being tame.
No,
now.
we're on land in Mongolia. They're in comfort territory. Obviously, everyone that's not from Mongolia has had quite a long travel day. Like, I don't know what... I mean, for you guys, I'm sure it was quite long. For you, the same. For me, it's fucking long. The problem with coming to Mongolia is, like, you can almost never fly direct to Mongolia from wherever you're coming from. So you have to stop over somewhere. And there's not that many flights that come in here. So generally
they flew
speaking...
with us, there's one a day. And
there's like one a day.
Us,
Same for me. There's like 2 per week to go from Hong Kong to Mongolia.
So it was us, Bleed...
On Mongolian Airlines.
OG Bleed, us, and Gaming Gladiators
all on
together.
the same flight. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
All the EU,
and it was
like obviously Aurora.
What was it? So we took a 5 a.m. from
it's
London. Oh, no, 8 a.m. from London. We had to wake up at 5 a.m. And then it was like, it was like a 4-hour wait at Frankfurt, whatever. So they're pretty rough. And I think Bleed, like, their flights were cut because Jacob's in Norway.
Yeah.
He had to like come a day before. And so they were all like, so. I know speaking to some of the guys, they're all still jet lagged to fuck.
For sure.
There's a chance because
and they're also all gamers, so getting up at an early hour.
is gonna win.
First day, game 1, easy. No, I mean, look, even for me, like, I'm on the same time zone. Basically, it's only 2-hour time difference for me, but I'm feeling fucked. Like, I had a fucking
travel
flight as well. I'm just wrecked. But for these guys, hop, skip, and a jump, they're in the MESA studio. They've probably played fucking not thousands of games here, but enough games that they're comfortable. So. Yeah, I'll say I think if anything, it's Mongolz and ATOX for me of the Asian teams that are going to be potentially able to cause a bit of a ruckus. I don't have a huge amount of faith in Linvision, but that's kind of what I said going into the Asia RMR, and then they sort of showed up. So I think if Linvision show up, definitely they can cause a ruckus as well. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know where you guys want to wrap that up. We're at an hour and a half now, but my takeaways are I think it's a very winnable tournament for the Mongolz, and I think that's really awesome because a lot of the time you would run an event like this in Asia or in ANZ, for example, and you'd go, okay, well, our local team's going to be like the fucking token invite, and they're just going to get shit on. But here, we might actually see Mongolz in the arena, in the grand final, win the grand final, How good would that be for
The one
this
caveat
content?
I add for the Mongols is this is their first time not being an underdog. This is the first
Right.
time
Yeah, sure.
everyone is.
But
But do they give a
Favourites, right?
fuck?
No. But see, the problem
don't
is not
think they
whether they
do.
give a fuck. The problem is that Mongols has had so many wins
Sure, I see what you're
on
saying.
the basis of well-planned force spy rounds and well-planned anti-strats. And that's, to be honest, not really as much of an option over here. Sure, the force spy is always going to be there, but people are going to be much more prepared for something like that. They're going to be much more used to the Tech 9 players that you like to go for. You look back at some of the wins that they've gotten versus complexity and whatnot, where it was very clear that they knew one side to hit again and again.
Right.
I mean, I think back at fucking ESL Challenger Atlanta when they beat complexity in the BO3 in the lower bracket to get top 4, I think in that ancient game on their T side, they went A 7 times in a row with the same call. Right? Like shit like that's probably not going to work when you are not the underdog. So the really cool thing about Mongolz is, outside of the fact that, hey, they could theoretically win this, maybe they're not the number 1 seed, but they're at least top 2 seed to win this one. We also get to see them prove that they're not just a team that's good at upsets, which is, frankly, look, I think they proved they're legit, but they are always a massive underdog.
They're an upset team. Yeah.
So it'd be really cool to see them coming in to a situation like this and show, you know what, fuck you guys, we ball anyway.
Yep.
The one thing I did want to question to the crowd was, so you've spoken basically about all but one team, Gaming Gladiators.
I thought we were going to go to Chinga's Warriors. What the fuck?
Yeah, well, yeah. I want to see what you
They're just
guys.
happy to be here. I think.
I want to get the litmus test, because I have my opinions. Obviously, I'm pretty open with them, and I always will be. But what do you guys think of them, like coming into this tournament?
I think they're good. They definitely overperformed at the major. That's the sort of classic line at the moment as Ecstatic. So, I still think they're good. It is a level of tournament where they can perform well.
Yeah.
There's just, it's kind of the thing with these tier 2 Danish teams is they're always the same spot for 2 years.
They're kind of hard
And
to
then
write
maybe
off, I
someone will
think,
get
in a way.
picked up.
I'm not going to come in here and say they're not going to do anything, but I don't necessarily have any expectations for them.
Yeah,
either.
exactly.
I think they're a team that's good enough to compete and
Mhm.
can potentially cause some damage, but they're not one team that I'm expecting to really go super deep in the tournament. Let's
Yeah.
just say that.
I mean, that said, they have been cliff diving recently with Kraken.
Yes. So I'm
Right,
going to say
like-
my unpopular opinion. I think they're the weakest EU team here. That's my unpopular opinion. I think
Mm.
the major overflated their rating. I think Kraken, he's my favorite player on that team by a long margin. I think he's struggling individually, and I think without him, they are nothing. I think the only one I'd say who I really do like and I
OG.
don't think gets a lot of credit is Nodios. I think as a role player, I think he's very, very solid. I just think he just does his job.
Queenix has been all right.
No. Queen's pretty good, but I think for me, Nodios is bar. Kraken is the one that I like in terms of he plays really shit roles, and I think he does quite well.
Yeah.
But for me, I think Gaming Gladiators, I think they are their ranking and what people think of them, I think is massively overinflated to what they are right now. I think they're on a massive
I
downward
do not
spiral.
What world do you think Gaming Gladiators is clearly worse than OG?
I'm not even joking when I say that I think there's pieces in OG. The only thing I think is different, I think Patty is 10 times the caller, right?
That's the thing, though.
yeah.
Right? And it's a national
I think,
team.
Band for band, pound for pound here. I think OG have more firepower. I think they've got a much better AWPer.
No,
I'll die on that hill. I think they've got a much better star rifler currently, right? I think Heavy God is playing much better than the way Kraken is. I think Modo is a better AWPer than Salazar, and I think Salazar is a good player as a rifler. I don't think he's a good AWPer.
I agree that OG come in with more top level firepower in Heavy God. Fair.
Yeah.
The calling is where you die. The role players is where you die. And very frankly, I do think that you are massively overinflating how good Modo is.
No, but it's not that I'm overinflating how good Modo is.
I know you're very down on Salazar. I know
it's that I don't think Salazar.
That's definitely one of the things that's written on Neo's Tinder bio. But
Hates Advent.
it's hate Salazar. It's Slytherin. No, you fucking nerd. The Counter-Strike player. No, I think you are being unfair in the Salazar Modo conversation. I'll be honest, because as much as Salazar
averaging
is
a 1.03 over the last
Modo's
3
average.
months. Yeah. No, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
But I think part of that obviously was he had spring groups where he was he botted out? Was that?
I just personally think that Salazar at least knows what to do in a system that has been made by
Yeah.
Patty. The difference
again-
is Moto's completely clueless because, again, I don't even blame him for this one, but
Yeah.
the OG team looks clueless a lot of the time
Yes.
because of the system that Keto's made just isn't working. I actually like some of the players on OG, but I do think that they're not being set up for success.
Let's settle this once and for all. Okay, we'll do
Boxing match?
the official Geographically Challenged MESA Nomadic Masters Spring power rankings,
Okay.
where we have to put one of these
Sure,
teams
okay.
above one another. So let's just start at number 8, Chinggis Warriors.
Rest in peace.
What
Agree?
the fuck?
I don't know. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
Sorry,
Sadly,
Mongolia. So number 7. Who's in number 7? Are you putting Game and Gladiators or OG in there? Do you think they're
Number
worse than
7?
Envision?
Oh,
Atox?
no, we're not putting on
Nah.
number 7.
Okay.
It's
So
gotta
who's in number 7?
I
I think
think
it-
Vision.
I think probably Lim Vision for me. Number
Yeah,
7.
Lin Vision's number 7 for me.
Okay,
right
so
now.
Envision number 7, then that makes Atox 6, or no?
No, I would put Atox of OG. Actually, that's not true. Seating wise, they're not. I think they're going to win the match, but seating wise, probably not. It's probably Chinggis, Lin, Atox, and then we get into the conversation.
I'm happy
Yeah.
with that. So then where? I mean,
I put OG here.
I'd put OG.
So
there.
I'd put Game and Gladiators here.
He's crazy.
No. Actually, no. I'd potentially put Atox here.
Um,
now we've locked Atox in. Fuck that.
Okay.
We're moving on from Atox.
yeah.
I'm not even kidding. Like,
So-
bear in mind, I
Jordan,
like
you
this
just
team.
interrupted his hot take. I would like you to retract that. Can I just know, do you think Game and Gladiators is worse than Atox?
No, I think probably I would expect Game and Gladiators to win that matchup.
But, okay,
Bar-
but do you think they're
bar-
worse than Atox?
No.
Okay.
I don't.
Just
it wasn't
making
that
sure
hot.
we're
It
not.
wasn't
We're not
So we've got Chinggis.
Chinggis,
Lin,
Atox, Lin,
Atox.
OG between me and Scriv. So you're the tiebreaker.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
personally don't have a horse in the race, really. Like, I don't
But
think...
you've got to put a ranking in, Jordan.
Okay, if I have to put a ranking, I'm put... See, this is hard for me because, like, I don't really watch these teams that often.
There's
Sure.
can I justify mine? It's not that I love OG. I don't. One of the worst run organizations in
you
Counter
hate
Strike
gaming though.
easily.
He
Like,
hates gaming.
Bar, Evil Geniuses. They were in. I mean,
Bar,
okay,
Easy and
okay,
Nip,
let
basically.
me
I'll
let
just-
me
I
let me
mean,
quote.
they're not run that badly. They just like don't
Well, no,
buy
okay,
good
we'll
players.
quote
They just don't get
Sponge,
good
right?
players,
Well, like,
you
or
know what I
not
mean?
not directly, but Sponge's exact words was, "I will not let JKS ever play for NIP, OG, or EG."
Fair enough.
You know, right?
Well-
because they're teams that they're.
Yeah, I think NIP and
To be
OG
honest,
is like higher
dude,
up management. OG just
JKS
yes,
on
100%.
OG,
But like,
you know what I mean?
nice.
OG have been, if it wasn't for partner spots, they would not be in any conversations for a long, long
Sure,
time.
but then they
right?
might actually have like a decent team.
Yeah.
So, you know,
what I'm saying is, for
they're
me,
playing the game.
currently OG look like a feasible team, but Gaming Gladiators has really been struggling. They've like
I mean,
seriously
I
been
get
struggling.
that. I think they'll look a lot better on
But
land.
what's the
I think
indication?
that
Like-
they just have way more of a system, way more of a complete team.
But-
you know,
but-
OG's like
How does that
numbers,
change?
firepower. You know, might be
Okay,
might be
Put
solid.
it this
but-
way. Here's an interesting thing about OG, which is that Nexus on the CT side, and this was true for a week ago, so maybe you need to fuck with some date filters. But on the CT side, his average rating on every map that's not Mirage was about 1.12.
Mm.
On Mirage, it was 0.8.
Right.
This is despite the fact that he's a connector player on Mirage. And Nexus does not have mechanical problems. How the fuck is that possible for a team like OG, whose Mirage is actually something they heavily lean into? If you actually look at what they're doing,
Mm.
they are cannibalizing their own players by using them as footstools here and there, by being like, oh, you go do this boost, you do this. They're changing things up every fucking round. So someone like Heavy God, who gets all the resources, he'll frag anyway. And I'm not saying that to discount from him. Heavy God's a fantastic player.
Yeah.
And he would probably frag regardless. But when you're rotating all of your resources around, when your roles are not properly fixed and everything, you are such a mess as a team in some of these maps. And that's
think
where I
you're
just think that
misunderstanding me. It's not about head-to-head comparisons. Like I know I made that kind of like the pound
Yeah.
for pound thing, and I do think that Heavy God's a better rifler than Kraken at the moment, and I think that Moda's a better AWPer than Salazar generally. But it's not about pound for pound. It's actually purely about Gaming Gladiators. I've cast them, I think, like 4 times in the last 2-3 weeks. They're nothing's working. I don't know what's going on with them. Something's obviously wrong in the camp, but they are like, I mean, look at them. Like, I swear they've lost like 80% of their recent matches. It's crazy. They are on such a downward trend. I think post major, they maybe like took their foot off the gas a little bit, but like I'm talking about just currently they are downtrending massively, and I think they're in a little bit of a rut, and it's tough to be in a rut and then come on LAN and expect the LAN to pull you out of a rut when it normally makes teams play worse.
But wouldn't that also be the case for OG? While at the same time, Gaming has a system, at least to try and go back
Yeah.
to it, right? Like
But
at least
OG
you've got
on in a
something.
rut though. They're like they're getting wins here, there. You know, that at least for gaming like this, they are coming to tournaments and woefully underperforming to expectations. I think they're I think people expect too much out of them. I think they still are a tier 2 team fundamentally rather than like a top 20 team.
Here's where we're at though. 2 against 1.
Yeah. No, it's fair enough. But I'm
claiming host
justifying.
privilege
Yeah.
and abstaining to vote. So OG goes underneath.
Okay.
And we can move
on
on
in.
from that
Yeah,
conversation.
because we'll be here for a
We'll be
while.
going on in fucking circles until we get to see that matchup play out. So what have we got then? We've got
So we've got
OG, then gaming. I don't think we'd want
gaming is
Yeah,
gaming is
gaming.
number 4.
and then I think it's Aurora.
Aurora.
Bleed Mongols.
Bleed Mongols.
I
Yeah.
have Mongolz
Yeah.
Bleed. I think Bleed's number 1 seed.
But we're in Mongolia, so get fucked.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Bleed second, Mongols 1. That's
Me too.
mine.
Fuck yeah, Mongolia.
You put Mongols 1 as on the post.
Giga
No, I
chat.
just said they'll be in the grand final.
No,
I didn't say
yeah,
they would
that's
win.
just a grand final.
Was it? Oh, I thought
Yeah.
I thought it was
No,
like
no.
winning. Yeah, so
No, no.
yeah.
I'm going Mongols. Fuck you guys.
Mongols 1, Bleed 2, Aurora 3. That for me is like a shoe in.
Giga chat.
It's tough because I'm on the fence. I'd think Bleed probably.
I mean, if you
Yeah,
want
yeah,
to
yeah.
if you want to make it a 2-2 split, that's fine.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's fair because we've all got them like going into the final
Yes,
and all
Harvey,
that
let's
kind of
go.
stuff. You know, but like
Let's go, Harvey. Don't
I
leave
think-
me hanging.
I think it is a Bleed. Yeah, I think Bleed would be the favorite coming in, just
Yeah.
because there's so much. We still don't quite have it realized, but the only 2 teams for me that have like the solid LAN experience. You've got Mongols as a lineup,
Mm.
and then you've got Bleed with their players down the line.
Right.
Mm.
And I think one of the big things coming into this tournament is just Hampus is going to be so comfortable here. I don't think that he's been happy like playing on like it's got to be done
Yeah.
or whatever. But
They're
it's
also the
just
only
not
2 teams with
environment.
arena experience, actually.
Yeah, for
Because
sure.
Mongols has it from IM Rio.
Mm.
And I mean, I guess for Bleed as well, they just come off the back of a boot camp. However, it's the only prac they've
Actually, that's not true. Aurora played at ESL Challenge in Melbourne in the arena.
Was that an
True.
arena?
It's a half arena.
It's enough.
How many people were
I think
there?
it's probably enough.
had. It was decent.
I don't know the numbers, but it's
Yeah,
not a huge
like,
crowd.
I'll be honest,
Maybe 500
I
to
did not
1,000.
watch
500 to
Melbourne and
1,000.
the demos.
It
Okay,
looked,
500 to 1,000. Okay,
It
fair
looked
enough.
alright.
It's
It
not-
sounded
it-
pretty loud.
It's
online,
yeah, it's not
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
not
like
what you would
this.
traditionally say is an arena, but it's like
Yeah.
Hey, that's cool.
it's
whatever.
in Rod Laver Arena. So
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
1,000 Aussies, it's
Yeah.
got to be worth 5,000
Yeah.
anywhere
Fuck
else.
you,
Yeah,
cunts.
Yeah.
Row F was living it up large.
Anyway, we are at the 2-2 split of Bleed versus Mongols, but I will say because we are in Mongolia, Mongolia wins. So Mongolia's got number 1 as far as
Also,
geographically
fair
challenged.
enough.
Very
Bleed-
official
Bleed
power
are
rankings going into the MESA
Yeah,
Nomadic
they
Masters.
have
They're jet
the
lagged.
country has the extra swing.
Correct.
votes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Bleed
Little
are
bit
also
of bias.
still jet lagged. So
Anything you
they're,
guys want to
they're
say
feeling a
before we
little
wrap it
rough.
up? Or do you want to keep talking about OG versus Gaiman? Like,
I just want to see the match.
Well, we can just- we can
I
just-
cannot wait.
Hopefully we
for
get to
Atox
revisit
versus
on
OG.
Friday. But I
I'm
suppose
not
it
gonna
depends on
lie.
how-
I
Yeah.
think
We'll see Friday. But the thing is,
Things
like,
go.
all I'm saying, just the
Fuck, here we go again.
All I'm saying is, it's not that I think OG are better. I just think gaming gliders are in a tough position.
that's fair. You know
I-
what? The tournament will tell.
If you ask
Yes.
me
Yeah,
at any
well, yeah.
other point bar like this week, I'd be like, fuck OG. What the fuck? Who gives a shit about this team? However, it's just I think gaming. I've watched them recently. I've cast them quite a few times recently. They're just all over the shop.
I don't know.
That's
Debate.
what that.
I think I know what's going on. I've watched a lot of OG recently. He's watched a lot of gaming recently, and we're both really
Yeah,
down on the
yeah.
ones we've watched.
Yeah,
That's all.
yeah. All right, well, there we go. Anything else you guys want to say?
No, that's good.
Alright.
We're excited for a good tournament.
Viva
sir.
Mongolia.
Yeah.
I don't actually know the
I think
Mongolian
it's
language.
Bailkla. Bailkla? That sounds like thank
Bailkla?
you. Bailkla. The Mongolians in chat can tell me how good my pronunciation was, but I believe that's thank you. So Bailkla for watching. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, do those things. Buymeacoffee.com/Elfishguy if you want to give us money, and I'll use
Us?
that.
Do I get some as well? What the fuck?
You might get a. Well, you don't drink, do you?
I'll take the money.
Yeah, no. Well, see, normally it's the alcohol fund for the boys when we
right.
inevitably
right,
go
okay.
for a drink, but
Nice.
we haven't really had the opportunity to go out much. So
Indeed.
anyway, we'll see. But do that if you want to. But otherwise, look forward to the episode. We're hoping to record on Friday. We'll see. It may not happen. These kinds of things,
Yeah.
you know.
We have a day off, so
Events
the
get
hope
busy.
is there.
Someone will probably get sick. I might get sick. I might just be like, fuck it, whatever. We'll see if it works. But look forward to one soon because there was a lot of people that put topics in for this one that we didn't get to cover because we've obviously gone over time. But
Mm.
we'll hope to get to them on Friday. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Hey guys, just at the end of this video, I'd like to give a quick shout out to Jean, who is my first supporter on buymeacoffee.com. If you'd also like to support me financially or any of my content, make sure to check out the link. It is in the description box below.